Okay, are we live now? Can we start? Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone is fine there and healthy, and so also their family members. So today we are here for the webinar on UVC light therapy for corona disease treatment and to learn A to Z about the mask to prevent the spread of corona infection and transmission of corona infection. This webinar is jointly organized by Amravati District Ophthalmic Society and Endot Pharma. So, myself, Dr. Bhuyar, Ashutosh Bhuyar, President, Amravati District Ophthalmic Society, welcome you all my ADOS respected seniors and dear colleagues for this webinar. I welcome respected Dr. Jagdeep Kakdiya Sirji from Bhavnagar, Gujarat. I thank him for giving his valuable time, and accepting our invitation in a short span of time. Thank you very much, sir. Today we have on panel our secretary, Dr. Pankaj Lande, Vice President, Dr. Rajesh Zawade. We will take up a few questions from the audience in between the two talks and after the second talk, and the queries will be answered by Dr. Kakdiya sir. So I humbly request all the audience to keep their phones and laptops on mute mode so that we cannot have much noise and the session should go quietly. Thank you very much. So before we begin our talk, I request Dr. Pankaj Lande to welcome and introduce our speaker, Dr. Kakdiya sir. Over to Dr. Pankaj.
Hello everyone, myself Dr. Pankaj Lande. Welcome from Amravati District Ophthalmic Society. I'm just going to give you a short introduction of Dr. Kakdiya. As Dr. Kakdiya is very well known for his inventions, he has done his MS Ophthalmology in 1989 from Baroda Medical College. He is a solo practitioner since 1990 and had done more than 63,000 cataract surgery and 8,000 plus LASIK surgery with his own machine and 250 plus cornea transplant surgeries. He is an inventor of OmniGlow, as we are very well aware of this particular product, which turns your basic microscope to a very high-end microscope. I am personally using OmniGlow and very satisfied with its results. He is a pioneer designer for ophthalmic examination chair unit. He is a clinical research on rho kinase inhibitor as an eye drop for PBK and fuchs endothelial dystrophy treatment. He had extraordinary work done at Excimer Laser and has his own built Excimer laser machine. Having self-owned IOL manufacturing company, which is developing very extraordinary quality IOLs in a recent days. Well, he's a well-known popular writer in Gujarati literature with four of his books are bestseller books. I hereby hand over mic to Dr. Kakdiya sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Ashutosh and Amravati District Ophthalmic Society. Alpesh, I would like to start sharing my screen so that we can go on.
Go ahead, sir.
Is the screen visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Just, I have divided the talk into 3 parts rather than 2 parts because UV is in 2 parts, UV in vitro and UV in vivo and the mask. So at the end of UV in vitro, first talk we'll have a break and have question answer about the UV in vitro. Then we'll have question answer at the end of UV in vivo, and then at the end of mask. So I again thank you all for inviting me, and I also thank all the audience for spending their valuable time, breaking their Sunday siesta and joining in this webinar. I'll be talking about what I have done from my side in my personal crusade against the corona. And I have no financial interest in the devices or products mentioned in this or my other lectures. I'm just an investigator. And once again, I thank Antod Pharma at the outset and Amravati District Ophthalmic Society for organizing this wonderful webinar. At this moment, we all are worried because this virus, this little virus, corona, has engulfed our nation, not only nation, but the world. And we all have a desire in our heart to free our country from this virus. I begin my talk remembering my guru, Puja Pramukh Swami Maharaj, who, when I started my hospital in 1990, had given me I6 mantra, that is ideal, be ideal, keep generating ideas, keep innovating, keep indigenizing, keep integrating it into your practice, keeping full integrity in your practice. So this has been my Jivan mantra. And he is my present guru, Puja Mahant Sai Maharaj, who is profusely blessing me all my research papers. Once again, he is blessing me for my IOL research and IOL company papers. And you all know that I am speaking from Bhavnagar, Gujarat. This is the city which is very well associated with Mahatma Gandhi because he studied his college education here. This is my eye hospital, which is a solo private practice eye hospital. And I'm also a visiting lecturer to one of the Chinese university, Lanzhou University in China, in North China near the border of Mongolia, where I frequently visit to deliver my lectures and also to train the residents for doing anti-glaucoma surgeries with Ologen implant. We do camps in the rural China, and we also do surgical camps in rural China when we go there. And my visit to China have been quite frequent. Some of the companies, some of the Chinese companies I have some association with, technical association, and as a result of which I know the Chinese mindset a little better. That's what I feel, which will come in my talk in the later part of the slides. And also, as Dr. Pankaj said, I'm also a good writer in Gujarati literature. These are my 4 books, and these are my 8 books. These 4 books are already bestsellers, and these 8 books are in various stages of printing. This talk was actually designed as innovative mindset in solo private practice. I know Dr. Pankaj Lanade is also an innovator like me, who has been doing some of the other small and big innovations. So innovation is, bringing chance into a change. And as Albert Einstein has said, creativity is contagious, and pass it on. And he also said that creativity is the supreme bliss for our intelligence. If we translate it in Hindi, it comes surgeon. Just a moment, let me start the laser point. Okay. सर्जन का जो है परम निजानंद होता है, और यहाँ सर्जन जो है इसमें हम भी आ जाते हैं, आई सर्जन्स ऑल्सो. And this is the house where Albert Einstein lived for almost 22 years in Princeton. And I'm happy that we are in the same or very nearby neighborhood. And this is the place where Albert Einstein had his office. Now that building is demolished, but there is a memorial bust of him there. At the outset, let us differentiate between what is innovation versus invention. Whenever something is made for the first time in the human history, it is invention. For example, some of our forefathers must have made this will, So at that time it was invention, but then as the time goes, we improve upon the design and the functionality, and that is a series of innovations. So by this series of innovation, we have reached our will to this stage. In our own field, Sir Harold Ridley in 1950 was the inventor of the IOL. He was the first to invent an IOL. But then through a series of innovations, we have reached to a level of these modern day IOLs. Same in the field of phacoemulsification. Dr. Charles Kellman in 1974, when he invented the first phaco machine, it was an invention. But then through a series of innovations, we have now reached to a level of very hi-fi type of phacoemulsification machines, which are very controlled and very nice. So an innovation could be as complicated or as big as a homemade excimer laser, or it could be as simple as getting a frame made which would hold all your foot pedals together, so that when you move from right temporal to left temporal, you never lose the reference between your phaco foot pedal and microscope foot pedal and the table foot pedal. So now let us come to the main topic. In 1942, Mahatma Gandhi had started a movement, Quit India movement, and currently our Prime Minister has started Quit India movement again for the coronavirus, and we definitely have to fight with COVID-19 coronavirus, but we also have to learn to live with it, because we know that it's not going to go away so easily, and it's going to be with us for at least another 2 years or 1.5 years. So we have to fight with it as well as we have to live with it. And we have to learn to live with it, because some people in some part of the country are not going to stop eating the live food, uncooked, non-vegetarian live food. So every 9 or 10 years, there will be relapse of this kind of viruses. There will be Corona 3 somewhere around 2025 or 2026. So as soon as we got the news about these coronaviruses, I made a visit to National Institute of Virology before the lockdown, and I started learning about this virus, experimenting myself in the virology laboratory, and I did a series of experiments. How can we destroy this virus? So I'll share a little bit about this virus, what I have learned. A virus actually is virion when it is outside the human cell, where it doesn't have any capacity to replicate. It is as a virion, it is to be considered as a dead particle. It's just a small particle of the DNA. Only when it enters the cell, it takes over the ribosome and Golgi apparatus of the cell. The nucleus is devastated, and then it starts replicating itself, makes its own millions copy, and then comes it out. So when it comes out, again, it is known as virion. So virus is when it is inside the cell, virion is when it is outside the cell. This is the technical term. Of course, we all know it as virus by default. And it's interesting to know that the Latin word virus actually comes from Sanskrit viscerus. In Ayurveda, this kind of disease were thought to be occurring because of some kind of viscerus. So this viscerus word in early Latin became virus, and then it became virus. And even today in most of the European countries, it's spoken as virus. It's only in the US that they speak virus, but almost all almost all European countries, they speak it as virus. Now this current virus, the current COVID virus, originated in a particular species of bat, and these bats are very fond of eating banana and some fruits. They are actually vegetarians. So when they eat the fruit, their abdomen is not big enough that they can eat the entire banana at a time. So they eat about half and they throw away the remaining half. So that remaining thrown away half is containing their saliva. And this fruit is also favorite for this pangolin, which is a mammal with scales. Now these scales are supposed to be aphrodisiac, and these scales are supposed to be giving very long life. So it's very popular food in China. So the banana half eaten by this bat is now eaten by this, and then the people who are handling this or people who are eating this, they got the virus in themselves. That is how this virus has jumped the species. And coronavirus is a large family of virus with which is already known, first detected in 1957. There were already 6 coronaviruses before, and this one is the 7th virus which is found in Wuhan, China. And as we all know, corona is the Latin word which means crown, and that crown of a British monarch or crown of any European monarch would be having the spikes and the silver, the gold balls. This virus is also having spikes like that. That's why the name has been corona. As you can see here in this electron microscopic picture, that these viruses are having spikes, and they are pleomorphic like potatoes. Means they are not of uniform shape. They are not spherical. They can be variety of shape like potatoes, and they are spiky like this spiky gourd, which we call as concoda or contola, or you can imagine they are looking like eranda, the seed of the errand tail. When they are spherical, their average diameter is 120 nanometer. When they are oval, their longer diameter is 160 nanometer, shorter diameter is approximately 60 nanometers. And there are 2 kinds of spikes on the surface of this virus. One spike is bigger. These bigger spikes are made up of glycoprotein. They are known as S spike. They are about 12 nanometers in length, and these are the spikes which are responsible for endocytosis, that is the entry into the cell, into the goblet cell of the mucosa. And this is HE spikes, which are very tiny or very small spikes, which are hemagglutinin esterase spikes, and these are the exit spikes. When the viruses are found in the cell, they use this spike to exit out from the cell membrane. And this is a single genome, positive phase, single strand RNA virus. So the single strand is so big, it is containing 29,980 bytes nucleotides, which is very big. Compared to this, the influenza virus is only 40 nanometers in size, and it doesn't have more than 1,000 bytes of nucleotide. SARS-CoV-1 had 7 fragments of nucleotide, and those fragments are also very tiny. And even the total of those 7 segments is not more than 3,000 kilobytes. This one has 10 times more nucleotides, and because of these large number of nucleotides, they can order the cells to produce 9,860 amino acids, whereas human life survives only on 20 amino acids. So versus the 20 amino acids, this virus can command our cells to produce these many, nearly 10,000 amino acids. And that's the reason why it causes a huge cytokine storm, which leads to a very severe disease if the patient is debilitated. And the other thing is that this is a positive phase RNA. That means it is a messenger RNA directly. A negative sense virus has to first enter the cell and then make themselves into positive virus, and then so that takes little longer time. This one is ready to infect or ready to take over your cell. So a positive phase RNA, as soon as enters into the cell, the infection has already started profusely. And if you compare the genome size of this virus is anaconda, then the flu virus, the normal flu virus genome can be compared to a snake. And let us see in this video how the virus gets entry into the cell wall. These are the ACE2 receptors, and these ACE2 receptors have very high affinity to the spike proteins, and as soon as they come, they are docked and locked, and then the virus is pulled into the cell, and once the virus is inside the cell, it will take over the nucleus, it will take over the Golgi apparatus and ribosomes, and start producing its own genome, start producing its own copies of the virus, and then it will exocytose. And this virus also has a great affinity for our white blood cells, and it can infect the white blood cells profusely, and about 1.7 billion viruses can be fitted in one white blood cell. Also has a great affinity for red blood cell, and also has a great affinity for hemoglobin, especially replacing the heme portion of the hemoglobin. And that's the reason why the patients feel very, very high level of hypoxia when they are infected. Now let us talk about UVEology. UVEology is UVE, that is ultraviolet energy logy. That's a science in itself. And I started to learn about ultraviolet light in 1995 when I purchased my first excimer laser. The excimer laser company said me that you cannot fumigate your operation theater anymore because the mirrors of the excimer will be, the coating will be gone with the formaldehyde vapor. So I said them what to do. So they said that either you can do surgery without fumigation or you have to use UV light. So then I went to some of the pharmaceutical company, Cadila and Torrent, and there I saw that in their injection preparation room or in their parental rooms as well as in their syrup formation room, they use UV light to disinfect the environment. They cannot afford to use chemical disinfection because chemical disinfection will contaminate their batches by adding that formaldehyde molecules into that injection, which they cannot afford. Then I also learned in those days that UV light is also used to disinfect the fresh fruits before they come into the supermarkets. And it is also used for treating the dry fruits. It is also used to treat vegetables. It is even used to cook in pre-packed food. And as we know that this is the visible light, which is the spectrum of electromagnetic radiation from 400 to 780 nanometers. Beyond this, the longer wavelength is known as infrared. And on the shorter side is the ultraviolet light, which is between the X-rays and the visible light. And ultraviolet light spectrum is again divided into UVA, UVB, and UVC. So UVA, UVB is a very narrow spectrum. UVC is a wide spectrum, and it is again divided into two parts that is known as vacuum UV and UVC. And so far, to the best of our technical knowledge of last 70 to 80 years, UVC at 254 nanometer has a very, very high capacity to destroy the microorganisms within the matter of few seconds. The UVC, almost all UVC is absorbed at a junction of the stratosphere and troposphere. That's about 15 kilometers above the Earth's surface by formation of ozone. So almost there is no UVC in the nature. Because of the ozone depletion, there is a slight leak of UVC, but we can consider that it's almost nil. UVB is about 0.3% penetration. So on the Earth's surface, we receive about 0.3%, and 99.7% ultraviolet light which comes on the Earth is UVA. And this is the light which is responsible for photosynthesizing chlorophyll in the plants. So if UVA is not there, the plants will not be able to synthesize chlorophyll. We believe that it is the light which synthesizes chlorophyll, but it's wrong. It's actually the ultraviolet A light which causes the photosynthesis process. This is, I think, the same picture. Now, this is very interesting. This Dr. Neil R. Finsen from Amsterdam, he was a Danish physician. In 1898, that is exactly 122 years ago, he discovered that UV light is certainly lethal to all microbes, that is all fungi, bacteria, and viruses. And Mycobacterium tuberculosis gets killed in UV light in 14 to 15 minutes time. and even Clostridium welchi and Clostridium difficalis spores would also die in minutes. After his discovery, up to that, in 1898, TB was considered an incurable disease. But after this discovery, all over the world, the TB solarium hospitals started coming up. Now, these were the hospitals wherein the patients would be exposed to the natural UVA light during the daytime by various means. This is one of the ward of a solarium hospital where the windows are made such that they focus the UVA light maximum onto these mirrors, and then these mirrors would focus the light onto the patient. So what happens in case of a TB patient is that when they cough, they are coughing the bacteria onto their shirts and onto their own chest, and when they inspire, they are taking those Mycobacterium tuberculosis back into their respiration. So they are reinfecting themselves. So this UV light could kill the bacteria which are coming out in their expiration, and when they open their mouth and bask the UV light from these mirrors, that would go into their throat and to a certain amount into their lungs and will help them. So to maximize the daylight hours, there were these kind of tiltable beds, and so many different kind of mechanisms came up, even to an extent that the entire TB hospital ward was made rotatable, so that with the sun's movement for the entire day, these rooms could receive as much UV light as possible. And there's still one solarium in MP Shah Medical College, Jamnagar. And with discovery of streptomycin by Dr. Selman Waxman in 1946, for which he was awarded 1952 Nobel Prize. And when streptomycin became available in 1960, after that, the solarium hospitals, they went out of the favor. So till then, for about 60 years, UVA and sunlight was the only way in which we could treat tuberculosis. And after the invention of streptomycin, most of these tuberculosis hospitals became defunct. Some of them were converted into hotels, and the solariums were converted into restaurants, which are the precursors, or later on they became the revolving restaurants. So that's just a little part of history. And Dr. Neil Finsen, for this discovery of UV light's ability to kill microbes, was awarded Nobel Prize for Physics, Physiology, and Medicine in 1903. So let us see how UV light can help us in fighting against this COVID virus. This is the colorized electron micrograph of the COVID virus, where you can see these spike proteins, which are green. So as soon as the UV light photon strikes on the virus, within 4 seconds, it will denaturize the spike proteins. These are actually glycoproteins. You can imagine these glycoproteins as candy floss, जो बूटी के बाल बोलते हैं ऐसा. It's very soft kind of glycoprotein which gets dissolved by soap and water, which gets inactivated and denaturized by UV light within 4 seconds. So at 2 millijoule per centimeter square, at 254 nanometer UV energy, just in 4 seconds this happens. And once the spike proteins are gone, this virus is then as good as bichu jiske naak or dunk kaat liye gaye hain. Or maybe it is like a snake without the teeth. And the other way UV light helps us is by formation of ozone. So this UV photon will dissociate the O2 and O2 into oxygen radicals that will then form O3, which is ozone, and one oxygen molecule will become free. Now this free radical oxygen is having 1 minus valency. That means in the outer orbit of that oxygen, there should be, for full saturation, there should be 8 electrons. Instead, it has only 7. So there is 1 electron missing. So it will try to snatch 1 electron from anywhere. It's exactly like the chlorine. So its behavior of this free radical oxygen is exactly like chlorine, and that's the reason why it smells also like chlorine. And that's the reason why is the name nascent. Nas is nose and scent is smell. So nascent oxygen is actually an oxygen which smells to you exactly like chlorine. So ozone has its own smell, and nascent oxygen has its own smell. And then what happens to ozone? As soon as the UV light photon is gone, this is a very stable kind of kajoda. So as soon as the UV photon energy is gone, again this will dissociate. So these two will form oxygen, and this will form one more nascent oxygen, a free radical. And that will again help in destroying the bacteria or the odors or the viruses. So this is how UV helps us, not in two ways. One is direct photon striking the virus, and the other way is formation of ozone and nascent oxygen. So it works physically as well as it works chemically. And this inactivated virus actually can work as a natural vaccine, and this is how herd immunity is produced. If you read the history of 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, you will realize that thanks to this sun-dried, or more accurately, I would say UV-dried semidead virions, that the virus, the epidemic comes to its own natural end, in spite of the fact that the vaccine is not invented, nor the medicine is invented. For example, SARS-CoV-1 in 2002, we still don't have the vaccine against that SARS-CoV-1, but that epidemic has died. MERS epidemic also has died. Swine flu epidemic has also almost died. That's because the UV light is helping in inactivating most of those viruses over a period of time. And if we study the Spanish flu epidemic, this is what happened. In September 1918, when they started having cases towards the end of September, on 20 or 21 September, they put lockdown here. And as the Christmas was approaching, they opened the lockdown after about 40 days. And when that lockdown was opened, there was a second wave, which occurred in December. The reason being contagious spread, as well as the reason being in America, there is almost no UV light in the month of December. And it lasted till the next summer, and it remitted only in the next summer. And when the winter was over, somebody remembered and somebody realized that we have to go back to Neil Filson's theory of UVA light. And then they started putting their patients into the sunlight for 4 to 6 hours a day, and that's how they could control that epidemic. So these things Chinese have learned very rapidly. So by the time they were in lockdown, they already have developed robots which are having UV lights, and these robots are programmed to move in different rooms and different wards of the hospital in the operating theaters. So that is how they have started disinfecting their hospitals. Not only their hospital, their transport hubs, even the buses are radiated by UV light by passing them through a UV tunnel externally as well as internally. All their public transports are now being fitted with UV light radiation so that they can disinfect between the two trips. Even the metro trains are being fitted with UV light. Even the public places like train stations, foyers are also being fitted with UV light robots. So many places you find UV light in the Chinese airports. Even some of the entire airports are radiated with UV light during the night time when they have some kind of curfew of the traffic. These bags for shoes and for jackets, these trays are also being sanitized by UV light. Even in parks and even in their public places, they have started fitting UV lights. Even the aeroplanes are being disinfected by UV lights between the two trips, between the two batch of passengers. This is a trolley, like a food trolley, which is having UV lights and reflectors so that it will shine the UV light on the seats as well as on the cabin baggage hood. And even the toilets are being fitted with UV lights. Their ambulances also are being fitted with UV light. Their operation theaters are also being fitted with UV light. And as I said, we have fitted UV lights in our operation theater since 1995 when we got the examer laser. And here I would like to just inform you that when you plan to install the UV, you have to see that it is UV-C. Most of the times it is Philips or Osram makes. So either it is Philips or Osram. But UV-C mark has to be there. Then only it is a real germicidal ultraviolet. And this will be transparent. The shell of the tube is transparent because it is made of fused silica quartz, and that shell is transparent for emission of the UV light, whereas our white tube light is made of glass. It's a different material. It does not allow the UV light to come out. So this transparent shell is very expensive to make. That's why it is more expensive than the normal tube light. And it contains a small amount of mercury. So usually it is marked UVC and Hg. That is for mercury. And it is also filled with small amount of argon and fluorine with mercury vapor. So it is essentially an examer light, not examer laser, but it is an examer light emitting at 254 nanometer. And this is how it looks when it is switched on. And you can see that this is how it pulses between the two electrodes at 60 hertz. So it's not a stable light, it's actually 60 hertz pulsating light. We can, with UV meter, we can measure the intensity of the UV light at different locations in the operation theater or in the hospital. There are also UV dosimeter cards available which turn from yellow to pink as it gets exposed to the UV. There are also UV strips available wherein this is the control, and this becomes green when it is exposed. You can also do the colony count by using E. coli as your indicator or MRSA methicillin resistant Staph aureus as your indicator. And this is the UV unexposed, and this is the UV exposed room where you find that it's a zero colony. Apart from these physical material and indicator and biological marker, you have two other indications. One is nascent oxygen. When you switch on the UV light, within 30-40 seconds, you start smelling the nascent oxygen. You also start smelling the ozone. That means the UV is working. And if you allow it to run for more than a minute or minute and a half, you will also start smelling protein burning. This protein burning is exactly same kind of putrefaction smell which we get when we ablate the cornea with excimer laser, or when hair is burned, or when we burn the dead body in smashan. The same smell, because the fungal mold and bacteria are dying. Also the epithelial cells which are shredded off from our skin or patient's skin, which are floating in the air, are also getting destroyed. So that's why we get this protein burning smell. So when these three smells are there, we know for sure that the UV light is working. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but if you wish, you can have the UV meter and this biological colony count done for your satisfaction. And this is the operation theater, retina operation theater of our hospital. This is LASIK theater. This is our waiting room. This is our consulting room. Another consulting room, and everywhere in our hospital you find UV. We have more than 60 installations of UV light, and in most of the doors, above the doors also we have the UV light, so that when somebody touches the door, the UV light also cleans up the handles. And when you open the door, within that 4 seconds of opening before it closes, there is also the other side of the handle is also sterilized. And you can put a fluorescent indicator, or you can just keep this fluorescent kind of paper to check that the UV light is adequately reaching over there. The stairways, the hallways, even the lift inside, and lift buttons are also shined with UV light, and even the toilets are fitted with UV light. And our staff, before they go home, every day they take 1 or 2 minutes of UV bath so that their clothes and their personal belongings are also sanitized within a minute or minute and a half. And if they feel any kind of throat irritation or slightest about which we will talk in when we talk UV in vivo, but if they feel as if they are catching some common cold, they will take UV light and ozone, and it clears within 7 hours. So this is my Akshadip Eye Hospital, which in the evening looks like all the rooms are lighted with UV. So I can easily say that it's Akshadip UV Hospital, and we are actually seriously considering putting up a board like this. And not only hospital, but my home also, because my home has a temple inside my home. So my house is more or less something like a public place where people come in-house to worship, because that temple murti has been pratishtha done by Puja Pramukh Swami Maharaj. So it's a very auspicious kind of temple inside the home. So in our home also we have UV light. This is the temple I'm talking about. In our drawing room, in our kitchen, everywhere, wherever we feel that there are more public coming in and out, we have the UV light fitted. And we can also use these kind of glow sign stickers, which we usually put in children's room at various locations. So by accident, if the UV light has been switched on for a longer time, you know by that glow that the UV light is on. Of course, by the smell of ozone, you can know very well that the UV is on. Now here a little differentiation between UVA and UVC. This UVA 340 nanometer or black light, which is also known as disco light, these are only for fluorescence. This does not have any germicidal power. So if you install this, it doesn't serve any purpose. It has to be marked UVC. And this UVA light is actually for fancy parties and for discotheque parties, not for germicidal purpose. Now, little about UV side effect, because most of the people have this question in their mind. So it's only mild to moderate corneal epithelial burns after a UVC dose of 3.1 millijoule per centimeter square for 1000 seconds or more, that is 16.66 minutes. It is temporary, it is reversed in 24 hours without medication. This is exactly what is a welder's eye. When somebody is doing welding, they are producing, and the welding arc is producing UVC light, and that is why they get this epithelial burn. Mild to moderate skin darkening. Of course, this is preventable by using UV goggles. Mild to moderate skin darkening can occur if you are for longer than daily dose, more than 16-17 minutes for 7 to 10 days. And then it goes away easily without, it's as if you have visited some beach in Goa, you become tanned and dark, and then when you come back within 10 days or 15 days, the tanning goes away. Low malignancy basal cell carcinoma can be induced after a cumulative exposure of 800 plus hours at a daily dose of 3.1 millijoule per centimeter square. So that's a very, very long shot. Usually we don't stay in UV for that much time. As I said, UV goggles can prevent the corneal burns, and you can prevent the skin burn by sunscreen lotions. UVC dose at 2 millijoule per centimeter square can destroy the spike protein of aerosolized virus or surface resting viruses in 4 seconds. Virus envelope is destroyed in about 40 seconds, and capsid and RNA is destroyed in about 80 seconds. E. coli is destroyed in 1.5 minutes, and MRSA is destroyed in 2 minutes, and Clostridium welchii and difficile spores are destroyed in 4 minutes. It has a very shallow penetration depth, so it does not go beyond the epidermis in humans. Stratum corneum of the epidermis, which is even in any case is a dead dermis, and it does not reach retina because the crystalline lens absorbs all UV light. And UVC has advantages that it kills all the microorganisms in about 4 minutes. UVC disinfection can be done daily. Not only daily, it can be done several times a day, between the OT and OPD also, between two OTs also. And it can also be done overnight, whereas chemical fumigation cannot be done on TID or QID or even on daily basis. Usually we chemically fumigate only once in a week or once in 10 days, which is practically nothing. You fumigated your OT today and tomorrow some patient comes and your OT is infected, and you can't do that every day. There is no toxic, smelly, or carcinogenic chemicals like formaldehyde vapor. There is no recurrence expense, and there is no humidity-induced problem because of the aerosolizing the chemicals. And we are using UV in our OT since 1995, and the tube lasts for over 9,000 hours. That is almost 7 years. So it's very, very economical. And a 4-feet tube fits in the same fixture plate as a normal white tube light. The tube cost is only 950 rupees, but because of the acute shortage at the present moment, the price has gone somewhere around 2,000 rupees. Putty and holder fixture is about 300 rupees. So about 2,200 rupees for each tube is good enough. And to achieve 2 millijoule per centimeter square at 10 feet, we need only one tube of 4 feet in one room. So consider one room of approximately 12 feet by 12 feet, 144 square feet will need one tube of 4 feet length if it is put in the center of the ceiling, because it radiates like this, and when it is in the center, it will cover 7 feet on either side. So it's not only actually 12 feet, it will cover almost 14 by 14 feet. You can count your necessity as 1 watt per 1 cubic meter, that is 35 cubic feet. And this equation will help you how to calculate how many tubes you will need in a room depending on the size of the room. And then after this COVID, what we did was we requested Dr. H.M. Nimbarg, who is PhD in electronics, and Professor Anish Vora at the Gyan Manjari Institute of Technology, which is a very famous engineering college in Bhavnagar, to design an Arduino-based timer for us, which will be keeping all the UV lights 30 seconds on and 30 minutes off when people are in the rooms. And it will keep all the UV lights 2 hours on when nobody is in the room at night. And it keeps the real-time timer, and it even keeps the Sundays and the days. So you can program it depending on your requirement. And then I thought that if somebody doesn't want to fit the UV light in every location and spend so much, then what we did was we made one trolley wherein we had fitted these UV lights. So this can be moved in different locations in the theater. And then we added battery and an inverter into that so that it becomes independent from power supply. So you don't have to push the wire everywhere, every room. And this idea was taken up by the Ministry of Science and Technology, and now its recommendation, UV disinfection trolley, can effectively clean up hospital spaces to combat COVID-19. This is on Government of India's website. And this is, after that, Dr. Mukesh Porwal, who is a retina surgeon at Rajkot, he came up with a very nice, simple idea that you can convert your IV set into a UV trolley just by fixing 2 UV tubes. And he is also a kind of a genius. He converted his one file cabinet with UV to keep patients' papers and sterilize the small items like this. And then he converted one of his old box of the trial set into a UV light, and the trial set already has one switch here. So that you just have to reverse that switch so that it switches on when it is closed and switches off when it's open. And he also sent me this photo today that dexamethasone Ozurdex box, he converted that box into a small currency disinfection with a 8-inch UV tube. And we also fitted in our central air conditioning this kind of UV so that the air also will come clean And this is what we are going to have to do this, especially those hospitals who have adaptable air conditioning or central air conditioning. And you can see the difference. This is before UV. You can see that so much of fungus develops, and these fungus and some atypical kind of bacteria, they trap the dust more. And this is UV treated fins. This is without UV fins. And Dr. Mukesh Dorokia from Mahua, Gujarat has come out with another idea of keeping UV tube on the top of his air conditioning indoor unit of split air conditioning, so that all the air is passing from here, getting sterilized. And in order to prevent the leak from the UV, he made the covers, and these covers are made from these oil tins, cutting the oil tins into two parts. And eventually, we are all going to need the UV in our house also, because once the lockdown is open, you don't know who is, many guests will be coming and who brings the virus to your home, you don't know. So you'll need UV in home also. And this is another interesting development which is happening in Japan and China. That is 222 nanometer. What we are at present using is 254 nanometer. 222 nanometer is a UV light which does not penetrate into the cornea. It does not go beyond the tear layer, and it cannot go beyond the surface of the skin. So this is safe for humans. So this can be switched on even in the presence of the humans. So with that, you can make even small boxes for small item sterilization, or even for hand disinfection without any chemicals. You just put your hands in for 4 seconds and take it out. And you can even document it or show it. And this is going to be the future of all the public places like airports. And in China, they have already started fitting this in their airports and their public places. Dr. Siddharth Raylan from Bombay has come up with a very nice idea of converting a diode, laser diode emitting 440 nanometer, passing it through barium borate crystal and emitting 220 nanometer. Because this 222 nanometer technology has been completely taken over by China for at least another 2.5 years. So these 222 nanometer tubes are extremely difficult to get. It's almost impossible to get. And there are various sizes and various types of UV gadgets which are available for disinfecting various items. This is the person who is UV tubes dealer in Bhavnagar, and he is in Ahmedabad. You can ask your local Philips dealer. You will be able to find somebody to supply you UV tubes in Amravati. And this is another very interesting company, IGL Germilamp. Now, the owner of this company is Mr. Syam, who is a PhD biomedical engineer. This is his phone number. You can contact him. He has made something very nice. This is a UV with a fan which will disinfect the air, and it will also release a very small amount of ozone. So I think it would, and it's not very pricey. It's around 5,000 or 6,000 rupees. It's stainless steel, full SS. So I think it would be good idea to talk to him once. This is another UV-C device which I came across. There's a company in Delhi who has started making it with collaboration from some Chinese company. This is a portable UV lamp which you can move from one to the other room. And it has a human proximity sensor. So if somebody comes within the 6 feet distance, it will switch off itself. And when the person goes away, after 10 seconds delay, it will restart itself. And it also has a remote with a 20-second delay timer. So this is something which is worth considering for your home, which can be ported from one to the other place, one to other room in the home. And this is a handheld 6 watt 222 nanometer UV-C light made by the same company in New Delhi, which you can carry with you to disinfect your your car, your bags, your toilets, or even when you travel. You can even clean your seats, airplane seats. This is the guy, Mr. Amar Bhatia, who owns this company. And if you can't get these big 4-foot tubes, what you can do is, these are very easily available, 11-watt Philips UV tube. These are used in most of the RO system. So you take 3 or 4 of these with the choke, and the total power will be 33 watt or 44 watt, depending on 3 or 4 you use. So if you can't get the bigger one, you can definitely get this one. It's very abundantly and easily available on Amazon for a price of 500 rupees. It comes with the choke, so you just have to give a electrical power to it and connect it. And these LED UV strips for disinfection is not actually powerful enough. We tested this, and we are not at all satisfied with this. So I would recommend you not to go for this. Go for the 11-watt UV tube from Philips or Osram. The best is, of course, 4-foot, because it's very economical. And you can also find these kind of on-off timers. This is actually a school bell timer. So this can be wired to the UV in series, and you can program it as many times as you want, on or off. It has 40 times on and off programmable sequence. This is the street light timer, which you can take help from your municipal corporation, street light department, or local engineering college. They can program this for your requirement of on and off timer. And this is also another timer, which is a good option for 600 rupees. You can connect your UV to this. This is also another timer. All these are available freely and easily on Amazon. Now the delivery has started. And this is another company which is known as ArcLight, which is in Pune. They are manufacturing UV lights of all the various sizes, equivalent to the Philips. So you can consider ArcLight as Philips India. And this is the mobile phone number if you want to contact them to purchase your UV lights from Pune, ArcLight. It's a very nice company. So here we'll take an intermission and have questions and discussion, and then we'll go on to the UV in vivo. So I'll stop sharing my I'll stop sharing my screen here. Right. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Asutosh.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have one question. UV, whenever I have previously was aware of this topic, say the air should come in contact with the UV from one end of a tube, and then from second end it should go out. Then only it will sterile, and the penetration is not more than a feet or so. So is it so, or it will like sterilize the whole room? As you said, the single.
What you are talking about is, there was one company in Ahmedabad who made very small air circulation unit. Okay. So that was a very small tube, 6-inch or 8-inch inside an enclosure. So inside that enclosure, once you block the UV light, it will not sterilize the air outside. So you have to circulate the air on the surface. But if you fit the UV light, this 4-foot light, they are available in 4 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet, and 1.5 feet, and then 1 feet. This 11 watt, depending on what. So if you fit these 4 feet UV light, for example, at a height of 6.5 or 7 feet, where we normally fit our tube lights, it will sterilize the air. You don't need to circulate the air.
Okay, fine.
You need to circulate it only when you have very small UV which is enclosed.
Yeah. You have already mentioned that toilets are covered. I think the viral load in toilets is very high, and it is mandatory that we should have UV light in toilets. Is it so?
Because most of the patients, suppose if a patient is, say, positive, they would, be either coughing or there will be spitting. And when they go for spitting, it will be usually, they'll be using the washrooms. So wherever there is more wet area, washrooms and water coolers, there we should have
No.
especially the public toilets of the hospital.
Yes.
Our doctor's own toilet may not be fitted, but those toilets which are going to be used by the people.
Okay, sir. So for 100 square feet room, 4 feet height, 4 feet length tube is more than enough, located in a central place.
Yes.
Hanging specifically better, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if the room is, let us say 15 by 12 or something, then you can have two on the opposite sides.
Yeah. It is better to have it hanged rather than being on a wall. Means the fixtures.
Yeah, it's because it's a tube, so it is radiating like sun on every direction. So if it is in the center,
Yes.
If it is in the center and if it is fitted on the ceiling, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. I have a question about ozone by one of the one of the viewers. How actually means the blind spaces, you can say, will it reach that area where you have tables, the area behind tables, or area below some items, that will be covered if, and how much time the UV should be on to act for such locations?
Right. So the UV will work physically wherever it shines directly. Right. And if the floor is shiny enough, it will reflect the UV from the undersurface. From the floor to the undersurface also. And you can check it either with the meter. The meter is around $600 US. So it's not really that expensive. Or you can just take a highlighter pen, Faber-Castell highlighter pen, write something on the paper and just keep the paper underneath the table, and you will know that how much UV is shining by the fluorescence, the amount of fluorescence. And wherever the UV is not reaching, if you allow about 25 to 30 minutes UV light on, this 4 feet UV light on in a room, in a closed room, it will form enough ozone to go in all the cracks and crevices and undersurfaces and disinfect.
Okay, sir.
And that ozone and the nascent oxygen smell, once you will have it, and once you when you will feed it, you will realize that it smells as if you have cleaned everything with sodium hypochlorite, because the molecular structure of nascent oxygen and molecular structure of chlorine is so identical that even their smell is identical.
Oh, fine, sir. Sir, there is question from audience. Are you aware of any robot we can put the UV light on, or we need not to be worried about that because we can enter with the UV light in the UV light environment without any hazard?
You can stay in the UV light environment for up to 1000 seconds, 16 minutes, before you start getting the corneal epithelial burn or face skin starts becoming dark. So other than that, there is no,
okay, sir.
Nothing is going to happen as such. So, if you don't have a switch outside the room for switching the UV light on and off, it's very easy for a person to go in, switch it on and come out quickly.
Okay, sir.
You won't believe me, but our staff for last 25 years, they are moving in and out of UV light for minute, 2 minutes without any side effect. We haven't observed any side effect.
Okay, sir. Fine. To cause a photokeratitis, definitely, as you were telling about, it cause like a welding arcs keratitis.
Right.
So how much duration it can cause issues? What duration?
More than 16 minutes.
More than 16 minutes.
More than 16 minutes. If you are staring at it, even in case of the welding, For example, if you looked at a welding for 1 minute, you are not going to develop photokeratitis.
Yes.
If you have looked at welding for more than 10, 12 minutes or 15 minutes at a welder's workshop, then only you start getting photokeratitis. So it's the same thing. You consider the welding arc, which is generating the same UV which we are generating here from the tube. So that photokeratitis is not really that serious enough. I mean,
okay, sir. Sir, are you? There is one audience who is asking me that is there any robot on which we can fit the UV lights and program it to move around, and is it available in India where we can get it?
No, we we are actually trying. We tried one thing.
Yeah.
A small, you know, that there's a small robot which is available for cleaning and doing jhadu pocha in your house.
Yes, yes.
You know, it moves, and wherever it strikes, it changes the direction.
Yes.
So we fitted one small UV tube on it, and we moved it. So you can do that, but there is no professional robot available so far in India. But it's doable. You can just innovate that jhadu pocha robot and convert it into
that will be an idea. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I think we can proceed with the second talk.
Okay, right.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thank you. And okay, so the second talk is about is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sir, there is some questions from audience. I think we will take up because those based on UVELOGY only.
Okay.
So the question is there any chance for cataract formation? The question is from Asha Saxena.
Right.
From New Delhi. Yeah.
That answer will come in the next talk.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Shall I take up few questions, sir? 2, 3 small questions.
Yeah, please. By the time I set up my screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, you please take up the question.
There is one ENT surgeon asking what precautions they should take. They are slightly more worried about eyes having the viral load higher. So what precautions they should take, and in addition to that, the allergist, the skin specialist, and ENT surgeons, what kind of precautions they can take while examining areas near eye.
Near eye.
Yeah, because there are many guys who are like non-ophthalmic and still watching this webinar.
Okay.
So they have a question about it.
Right. I think those questions will be answered in this talk, because now we are going to talk about UV light in vivo. What we talked at present was about UV light in vitro, and most of those questions, including that madam's question, will be answered in this. So let us take those questions at the end of this session. Is my screen now visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now I'll be talking about UV-C in vivo. Okay, so you know, the projection as predicted by several epidemiologist software from these premier institute of India, where that by the mid-May, we will have 5.35 lakhs infections and 38,220 deaths. But we know that by 15th of or 16th of May, this actually did not happen. And the actual figures were much lesser than what was predicted against.
Hello, sir. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Your slide is not open, sir.
It's not open. Okay. Screen sharing is paused. Is it now open? Okay, now is it open now?
Sir, it is open. We can proceed.
Okay, fine. Okay. So in reality, the infection rate predicted on 18th March was 83% of the mark, and the death rate is about 91% of the mark. And if you remember this talk between Karan Thapar and Ramanan Lakshmi Narayan, who is a very famous epidemiologist of USA from Washington, he came to India to guide our ICMR, and he said on that interview that India could be the next coronavirus hotspot. In the worst case, up to 60% could be infected. His prediction was that on 18th March, the wire, it's still on the YouTube. 81 crore infections will occur by the end of May. 4% mortality, that means 3.24 crore deaths will occur by 30th of May. So today we are on 31st May, and we know that this did not happen. And they were about 810 folds off the mark. So who helped us? Of course, the lockdown helped us. Of course, our spices in our food, which we take, probably helped us. Our indigenous Ayurvedic medicines and jadibooties probably helped us. Also, it is thought that BCG vaccination in general has helped us. Also, the endemicity of malaria, dengue, and chikungunya, which are dengue and chikungunya both are RNA viruses, which have probably given us some amount of collateral immunity and has helped us. But more than that, the sun god has helped us. This is what I believe. And sun has helped us not by visible light, but by the ultraviolet light. So, we were constantly thinking about the UV light. And here I would like to introduce my co-researcher and my close friend and colleague, Dr. Ramesh Shisa. You know him very well, that he is a very high volume cataract and LASIK surgeon from Bombay, and a very innovative kind of person. And to Dr. Ramesh Shah, I would, if ever I am in any capacity, would give him a Nobel Prize or at least Padma Shri for his idea of using UV light in vivo for the COVID patients. What happened was, and what I'm now going to describe to you is not only my work, but primarily it is his idea, which I executed, because in Bhavnagar, I had a permission from collector to run some of the workshops at engineering college and could make things during this lockdown period. And I was assisted by my wife and my sister in making this. And you know about OmniGlow, so we have to take a little detour about OmniGlow. You all know that OmniGlow is a small device which can be attached at the bottom of any microscope, which will convert the microscope into a stereocoaxial device, stereocoaxial high-end microscope. This is a small attachable and detachable device. In a conventional microscope, we know that there's only one sweet spot of red reflex, whereas with OmniGlow, the glow is uniform, and it's in any position of the eyeball, any tilt of the eyeball, you will always get an excellent red reflex. This is a case of dense PSC cataract, which looks so much more beautiful through OmniGlow. Doing capsular axis is always a pleasure because you almost never need blue dye except in wide mature cataract. And because of phase contrast, it gives you such a beautiful margin visible. Hydrodissection is always, the fluid wave is so clearly visible. You almost always get a red ring, golden ring reflex. And the phaco procedures are also a pleasure. This is blood behind the IOL. Because of excellent enhanced stereopsis. You are never afraid of going behind the eyeball to watch the blood. When you aspirate the methyl cellulose or visco, you can actually see the visco coming out or being aspirated till the last bit. In a pupil as small as 2.5 millimeter, or even 1.5 millimeter, you never lose the glow in any position of the eyeball. And because of very good glow and 3D enhanced 3D perception, you are never afraid of enlarging your axis and making it more central from an overlaps, centered. This PC rent is so well perceived without OmniGlow, with OmniGlow. And if the pupil is fully dilated, you can see the zonules so well. And these drape reflexes, these reflexes from the drapes, as soon as you switch on the OmniGlow, these ghost reflexes are immediately gone. These two are the OmniGlow lights, and this is the microscope light, which always gives me such a nice smile. So after we developed Pankaj OmniGlow, we were, I was actually working, and what I did was I replaced the visible light by an ultraviolet light to convert the OmniGlow into UV glow, which is the UV avatar of OmniGlow, so that I could do C3R treatment. Normal C3R machine are costing around 14 to 15 lakhs, and even then they lack the microscope. So when you are doing C3R, you have to keep on juggling between the microscope and the C3R machine. Whereas with this, you can convert for about 1.5 or 1.6 lakhs. You can convert your microscope into a C3R machine. So you have microscope and C3R both together. And when we were doing this research, by a chance, accidental chance, we came across a phenomena where we realized that moxifloxacin is a fluorescent molecule. Not only moxi, but also getafloxacin, levofloxacin, and amphotericin B. And then for those who are non-ophthalmologists, just let me remind that fluorescence is a property of a material where it absorbs invisible short wavelength of light, which is usually UV light, and it emits the longer wavelength of visible lights. That's fluorescence, converting small wavelength, absorbing smaller wavelength and emitting longer wavelength. So then we did some literature search, and all of a sudden I realized that fluoroquinolones, because their name itself is fluorine, they are fluorinated quinolones. So wherever there is a fluorine, there has to be fluorescence. So then, we started doing, with this UV light, we started doing staining. So instead of using fluorescent stain, you can use just Moxifloxacin eye drops and you can see the corneal stain. And this is, crystalline lens protein, which undergoes oxidative change with the age. And when crystalline gets converted into tryptophan and beta-carbolin, it becomes fluorescent. So it absorbs UVA light and emits a visible spectrum of green light. And here I would like to remind that UVA is completely absorbed by the natural human lens. UVB is absorbed in aqueous humor, and UV-C is absorbed in the corneal stroma, corneal surface and stroma. So in any case, the UV light never reaches the retina, only blue light reaches the retina. And this is the patient who had a dense black cataract. The patient was not ready to believe Coca-Cola type of semi-transparent black cataract. He was not ready to believe that he has a cataract. So we shine the torch and the cataract fluoresces. So you can demonstrate it very well to the relatives or take a picture of the patient and show him in the mobile. This is another lady having dense PSC cataract. She is not ready to believe that she has a cataract, and you can demonstrate that she has a cataract to the relatives. And you can also use the UV light for testing photochromatic glasses and the quality of how rapidly they change and how rapidly they become clear. And you can also test UV blocking glasses. This is the fluorescence, Moxifloxacin eye drops, and if you bring the UV blocking glasses, if it is a real UV blocking glass, it will block the UV and the fluorescence bond. And then with a little modification, we made UV glow into zero fungus kind of a device. So this is a device which can be powered by USB, and this can be hanged onto the eyepieces of the microscope. So throughout the night, the UV light will enter into the microscope's entire optical channel, and it will always keep your microscope's entire optical beam path free from the fungus. And then we realized that we can even do fluorescent angiography with using moxifloxacin hydrochloride infusion solution rather than using the sodium fluorescent liquid dye. And injecting intracameral exact 0.1 ml at the end of cataract surgery was a big problem. So, because sometimes you would inject less, sometimes you would inject more, especially with the PFS syringe, which is containing 0.5 or 1 ml. Sometimes you inject more. So what solution I found was that I would take 5 ml syringe, take 1 ml of Moxi, add 4 ml of BSS, so it becomes 1Gem4 diluted solution. So now this 5 ml is containing 1 ml of Moxi. So the 0.5 ml will contain 0.1 ml, and 0.5 is the antechamber's full inflated volume after the patient is either aphakic or pseudophakic. So at the end of surgery, we fill the anterior chamber with this diluted Moxi, so we don't have to worry about the amount and the concentration or overdosage or underdosage. So then what started happening was that sometimes you would get confused, the nurses would get confused which one is a diluted moxifloxacin and which one is the plain BSS. So you shine UV and immediately you know that this is the diluted moxifloxacin and this is plain BSS. And even when you inject it in the anterior chamber, you can see it. You can see the moxifloxacin being injected into the anterior chamber till the anterior chamber is fully filled. And even when you give subconjunctival injection, you can see the fluorescence in the subconjunctival space also. This is yellow Moxi which would appear fluorescent under the UV light. And you can even see how long the moxifloxacin which you had given in the morning would stay in the anterior chamber. And we measured that up to 12 hours, it stays almost as is. And the trace of moxifloxacin can be seen even on the next day. And then we found another use of these UV torch and moxifloxacin. You know, when a child comes with epiphora complaint, you put moxi eye drops in both the eyes and ask the child to wait for about half an hour. And then after half an hour, if you see the nasolacrimal duct, which is patent, the dye has flown into the nostril, and here the dye is retained. So moxifloxacin and UV combined can be used as an indicator, as a dye. So, you know, we were doing this research, and when the corona news started coming, me and RC were thinking, how can we kill corona? And then we came across these scientific reports which were clearly indicating that the virus can be killed by a very short duration of ultraviolet light. And this is a very nice experiment done by this group at Kobe University, which you can later on go into the detail. Now, this is the cultured epithelial cell of the human mucosa, and which have been infected by SARS-CoV-1 viruses. And SARS-CoV-1 and H1N1 as well as influenza viruses, these are all fluorescent viruses. So they take a fluorescein. So these are the cells which are virus laden, which are swollen, and which are heavily infected with the viruses. So when you radiate them for 0 millijoule, this is the situation. When you radiate them for 1 minute with 0.8 millijoule, you see that almost 50% of the virus load has died and the cells have come to their normal size, shrinking, the cells are shrinking to the normal size. When you radiate them for 1 minute at 1.3 millijoule per centimeter square, about 70% of the viral load is gone. And when you radiate for 2 millijoule per centimeter square for 1 minute, you realize that almost 95 to 97% of the virus load is gone. And before this, the other use of UV we were doing was doing a customized treatment of keratoconus. You take a rigid gas permeable lens and notice the exact topographic pattern, because we don't have the custom facility of custom C3R or custom ablation. So then you cut this contact lens in this fashion after marking it. And this contact lens is UV blocker. So where you have made a hole, the UV will pass, the rest of the cornea will not receive the UV. So with that, you can do customized treatment of the keratoconus. When you do standard CXL, there will be a flattening of the entire 9 or 10 millimeters of the cornea which you have treated. So although the topography will flatten, the elevation of that topography will remain the same, because this area is flattened, this area also has flattened. So although the dioptric value will decrease, the topography will not change much. But when you do this customized treatment, you are radiating the cone far more for more minutes than the rest of the area, as a result of which you can flatten the cone more than flattening the upper half of the cornea. So these custom CXL experiment using contact lens with punching a hole in the contact lens, this is what we were doing. And then we came up with another idea that can we radiate the cornea having fungal abscess. So we made a hole in the contact lens, put it here, only exposing the ulcer area, and then radiating this with the UV light. And to our surprise, we found, this is the radiation. After putting this contact lens, we gave the radiation for 3 minutes, 2 millijoule per centimeter square. And we named this device Cure Cornea UV for the registration purpose. And we realized that the fungal corneal ulcer, which otherwise would take 1.5 months or sometimes 2 months of systemic and topical antifungals, would start getting sterilized, the hypopyon gets absorbed, and the fungal ulcer starts healing within 3 to 4 days. And then we thought, can we destroy the herpes simplex viruses which have erupted on the surface? We found very good result in herpes simplex as well as in herpes zoster using the UV. Then we started treating adenoviral conjunctivitis, and these adenoviral conjunctivitis sometimes takes up to 20 days to recover, but with UV it will recover within 7 to 8 hours. By next day the patient will be cleared. And even these inclusion subepithelial infiltrates by dead viruses in the anterior stroma, they persist for months and months together, and you keep the patient on steroids for months. You irradiate them with UV light, and within 4 days they are gone. So we were getting all very nice results. And then we were also doing another experiment where, there are some patients who have severe allergic conjunctivitis. No matter what you do, this will not go except by steroids. And when you do the serological testing of these patients done, most of those patients will have serological titer of allergen of house dust mite, which will be above 3.6 or 4 units. So these patients are mostly allergic to this house dust mite. And when we ask them to purchase this UV lamp and keep it in their bedroom, in their sofa, and these places for 20-30 minutes. Now these house dust mite have two characteristics. One is they are transparent, so that UV light goes into it and kills them very quickly. Within about 20 minutes, the house dust mites would die. And second thing is they are highly attracted to UV light. So when you put the UV light here, all the house dust mites which are inside the tapestry into the foam, they would come out. और जैसे पतंग जो है वो दिया के पास जाके खुद जल जाती है, इसी तरह house dust mite, they do harakiri, getting attracted by the UV light, and these children, they get cured by just by UV light from their severe chronic allergic conjunctivitis, which was there for 3 years, 4 years. And then we treated many patients of common cold and having sinusitis. And common cold, which would otherwise take 7 days, would get cleared in about 7 to 8 hours. And believe me, common cold viruses are also rhinoviruses, which is also something very similar to the to the coronaviruses. So these things we were doing in last about 8 or 9 months or a year. And then came this corona. Here, this is my UV-C torch which we had made to do all this our experimentation. And then I thought, can we radiate our throat? So we did several experimentation on my own self to make sure that it does not damage the mucosa. And then this corona came, and it was 23rd April, William Shakespeare's birthday and death date, which is celebrated around the world as World Book Day. And I was reading Romeo and Juliet, and I read there everything is fair in love and war. And on the same,
supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant. It knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number of lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
So when we heard Donald Trump toying with an idea that we have to take UV light in the human body in order to fight this virus. And on the same evening, an ophthalmologist from Bombay, his 86-year mother and 87-year uncle came COVID positive. And then we thought, if we can kill the virus in the cornea and conjunctiva by UV-C, can we kill it in nose and throat mucosa also? Why not? And as you know that this is a war against the corona, and we don't have the time for evidence-based medicine. And even the Prime Minister is advising various kind of unproven, non-evidence-based therapies like arsenicum album and steam inhalation. So we thought, forget about evidence-based medicine, let us radiate. So we radiated the uncle and the auntie, both of them. And to our surprise, they were RT-PCR positive on Monday morning. We radiated them on Monday evening. And then they were taken into the isolation ward. And on Tuesday morning, we requested the authorities, just for our satisfaction, that please do RT-PCR once again. They usually do after 5 or 7 days, but on our request, they did it on the second day. And to our surprise, they both came negative. After 3 days, again, the RT-PCR was done, which came negative. After 7 days, the RT-PCR was done, which also came negative. So that gave us some idea that this UV light is probably clearing up the viruses from the throat and the nose mucosa. And then a very close friend's family, 4 members in Bhavnagar, they turned out to be COVID-19 positive. And they wanted me to see his eyes for query herpes simplex. So I went for a private consultant eye checkup in the COVID ward. And while examining the eyes with various types of torches and fundoscope, we irradiated his nose and throat. And to our happy surprise, his RT-PCR came negative next day, while other 3 members still remained positive. Then he called me again, and we radiated 3 other family members, and then they also came negative. So by now, we already treated 14 patients having the same experience. and it's not only 14. By now, Dr. Ramesh Shah and me together, we have crossed almost 100 patients, and we are getting same results. Very nice, very nice. And I cannot describe it enough how rapidly we can clear the virus from throat and nose. And so we renamed our Cure Corona device, a Cure Cornea device, into Coronash UV device. And Coronash means one is Corona ka nash, and the other meaning is Coronas, matlab dry inhalation. Nas, Gujarat mein nas bolte hai inhalation ko, steam inhalation is a wet inhalation. This is dry UV inhalation. So with our torch, we felt as confident as him having his Smith & Wesson in his hand. And so we informed the Prime Minister immediately that we have come across a happy chance finding, and you please take the matter up in your hand. And he immediately responded, and our findings and our project report was forwarded to ICMR with ICMR Chairman Syed Adil Shamim Andrabi being put under as a supervisor of this project. And then we also informed the Gujarat state government and Maharashtra state government about this. I was called by Gujarat state government. She is Dr. Jayanti Ravi. She is a nuclear physicist, became an IS. She's the principal secretary of health Gujarat state. And we had about 2 hours long meeting, and I went with my device and everything, and I demonstrated it to some of their staff who were thinking that they are probably corona positive, and they gave us permission to conduct a pilot study at Government Medical College officially. So all the paperwork is now done, and we already have started doing that. And since last 7 days, Bhavnagar used to have 16 to 17 positive cases every day. In last 7 days, we don't have a single case positive. And our ward, which was flowing, COVID ward, which was flowing with 30 to 40 patients admission, now we have only 7 patients, and all those 7 patients also, I feel, are going to be discharged tomorrow or day after. So this is, and then because Donald Trump had spoken about the UV light into the throat and nose, we informed him also, and we have received a receipt that it has been received at White House. And I also have some happy connection with United Nations, where I keep visiting quite frequently through our ambassador of United Nations. And with his help, we have informed the United Nations also. And we also informed the World Health Organization about this finding, and we are waiting some response from WHO. And yesterday I had a talk with Dr. Harshvardhan as well as Dr. Balram Bhargav. Now Dr. Harshvardhan is currently the in charge of WHO. So I had about 15 minutes of discussion with him. He is an ENT surgeon, so he could grasp it quite quickly. And we were not the first. Actually, there was a group in USA which was toying with an idea of taking UV into the body. And they had made this UV side emitting rod, which can be inserted into the rectum, and you can treat the Crohn's disease, which is resistant to most of the antibiotics, which occurs by some atypical kind of bacteria. So for the treatment of Crohn's disease, this was already developed by one university in USA, which is now under trial. And we also thought of developing a laryngoscope with a fiber optic UV light, which can take the UV light into the throat. Even a bronchoscope can be developed with a fiber optic UV light so that you can radiate the lung. And even if the patient has severe blood viremia, even we can put the patient on dialysis, and there are 2 places in a dialysis unit which are UV transparent tubes where the blood passes. So if we shine the ultraviolet light in these 2 locations when the blood is passing, the viruses in the blood also will be destroyed or inactivated. And there are people who are very skeptic about the UV light, but there are some doctors, not allopathic doctors, but some other kind of doctors in USA who are already taking ultraviolet light by a fiber optic light pipe into the vein of the patient. And here you can see that purple, little purple shadow here, emitting the pulsatile UV light and disinfecting their blood from some other diseases. It can be done by putting a catheter into the vein zone. And radiating humans with UV light is not new. In Siberia, they do it regularly because Siberia does not receive any UVA or UVB radiation. So their children are always vitamin D deficient, and in their kindergarten, there is almost once in a week, there is a period where they are radiated to UV light. And then I came across a study where this study has been published in Transfusion Journal of American Association of Blood Banks, that UV light can inactivate dengue, chikungunya, and Rose River viruses in platelet concentrates and in the blood before the blood is transfused to other person. So like HIV, we don't want to transmit the HIV from donor to the recipient. You can actually radiate the blood bank's blood with UV light. So this study gives us a fundamental basis that for the same patient, if you take out the blood in dialysis unit and take it back after radiating in the dialysis cycle, you can actually treat dengue, you can actually treat chikungunya, Rose River viruses, Nipah viruses. All the RNA viruses can be inactivated within 4 seconds. So you just have a transparent glass tube, which is UV transparent. You allow the blood to pass through and go back into the patient's blood. This is doable. And then today only this report has come. This is just today morning. I came across this report, which has been published on 29th, but it came today. That using riboflavin, which is UV sensitizer, vitamin B2, UV light reduces SARS-CoV-2 pathogens in plasma, whole blood, and the reduction is to an extent that research, here you can see that the research we conducted answered the question, yes, we can. We can radiate the blood and eliminate a huge amount of virus, and we could not detect the virus post-treatment. So it's almost like 100% destruction of the virus in the blood. And these are the references of this journal if you want to go into this study in detail. Now, whenever I talk about UV-C in vivo, the first question comes to me is, what about carcinogenicity? Now, I can inform you that not a single study report has yet confirmed carcinoma induced by UV-C in humans. All the studies are reasonable assumptions from studies done on UVA and UVB. There's only one study of a no melanin white shaved mouse model, which is not proper in my opinion, because the mouse with their taken was only weighing 40 grams. It has a very thin dorsal skin which was radiated. It's 10% of the human skin thickness. And what they radiated was 157 millijoule per centimeter square for 1 hour. So they basically wanted to see what is the dose which would induce the DNA denaturization of the mouse skin. So this is very high dose. Our proposed dose is only 2 millijoule per centimeter square for 3 minutes. So considering the statistical extrapolation of skin thickness of mice, which is 1 gem 10 and 3 minutes versus 1 hour and 157 millijoule versus 2 millijoule, I calculated that for up to 7,850 doses we can give. Until then, we are not to worry about developing carcinoma in humans. That means if given twice a week, it will take 78 years to develop carcinoma in humans, and we don't need to radiate anybody for that. So with skin covered well, even that possibility is nil. And then some of the doctors asked me about oropharyngeal mucosal carcinoma. Now these virus-laden cells of mucosa of COVID mucosa are already having hijacked denatured DNA. I mean, these are the cells which are almost at the edge of dying. And they are about to die or almost dead in any case at apoptosis. And oral mucosa regenerates almost twice daily because when you eat hard food, in any case, the epithelial cells are taken away. So I don't think we should be worried about developing mucosal carcinoma in 3 minutes, 2 millijoule per centimeter square dosage. And the risk-benefit ratio is far more in favor of radiating mucosa. Now, I give an example that let us say you have severe toothache and you don't have any medicine for this toothache. You don't have anything except a small little amount of tobacco flakes, and you put the tobacco flakes there and you cured your gingivitis. Now that doing once is not going to give you a carcinoma of mucous membrane of the oral cavity. It's something like that, you know, taking 1 UV dose versus taking 7,800 UV dose. Even cigarette is much more carcinogenic than UV. And taking your tea or hot drinks in a plastic cup or plastic bag like this releases diethyl exhale, which is much more carcinogenic than the UV rays. And even the plastic bottles in which we drink mineral water is also carcinogenic if it is heated for more than 30-35 degrees. Because they leach some chemicals. And doing X-rays or doing CT scan, you are radiating your body more than UV. And UV is a non-penetrating radiation. That means it goes only 1 to 2 microns in your skin, whereas X-ray goes through your body. It's ionizing radiation. But we are not worried about this. Unnecessarily, we are worried about the UV. And these formaldehyde fogger or fumigator are giving you much more toxic fumes in your operation theater than what a UV or ozone would be giving. And even cell phones are giving so much of radiation that they are also a possible risk of developing some kind of cancer in your brain, but we still accept it. And these are the fishermen in South India and in Sri Lanka who spend their entire day fishing in the shallow water, under the sun, under the UV. And we have never heard that any of them developed a skin carcinoma. Or these boatmen or fishermen or these welders, they are doing welding their whole life, exposing their skin and the face to the intense UV radiation caused from the welding arc. Nobody has, I have never come across any patient who has developed carcinoma of their skin. And these road workers who are working under the sun for the whole day without protection, and Indian farmers, we have never seen anybody developing UV-induced carcinoma. And in our own field, we subject cornea to UVA from a distance of 50 centimeters for 30 minutes when we do C3R at an energy of 3 milliwatt per centimeter square. So this is 1.5 times the energy, and instead of 3 minutes, it is 30 minutes. How many cataract formation we have seen after C3R being done, or how many carcinoma of cornea have we seen after C3R being done? C3R is being performed since 1997. And it's more than 23 years now. We haven't seen a single report of developing UV-induced carcinoma here. And when we do LASIK, we are radiating the cornea with 193 nanometer, which is an ultraviolet light. It's in the form of a laser. And the fluence is 150 millijoule per centimeter square. And if you are treating 10 diopters, means you are treating this cornea for almost 2 minutes. Now, how many post-LASIK corneal carcinoma have we seen? Not a single. So we are unnecessarily afraid about carcinogenicity of the UV in such a small dose for such a small time. And there are 2 temporary minor side effects which can be addressed very easily. At 2 millijoule per centimeter square, it takes about 1,000 seconds before mild corneal epithelial burns, which is known as Wilder's eye, would occur. And it is preventable by use of UV filtering goggles. It heals spontaneously in 24 to 36 hours, even without any treatment. You just need only lubrication, and it leaves no scarring behind because it does not affect the Bowman membrane. It only deepithelializes to a certain extent. And the face skin would develop mild tanning and chilly touch type of burning sensation, and it can be prevented by face mask or by UV blocking sunscreen. You can make a paper mask like this when we radiate the mucosa to prevent the skin burning. And when there is a will, there is not just one, there are many ways to do it. And she is my wife, Dr. Ila, and this is her dream that our UV-C device should be something like this, as small as a keychain. And this is going to be the future weapon against not only corona, but all respiratory infections. And this is how we can simply treat, even patient can treat himself. And I'm pretty sure that with UV, once our study gets approval and published, the way we treat chronic tonsillitis or the way we treat chronic sinusitis, fungal sinusitis, the UV is going to change the way in which we treat. And now there are some questions which were asked by some of our colleagues, that you are radiating the mucosa of the oropharynx. What about the viruses which are elsewhere in the body? So what we thought was, because all those patients, they improved clinically, not only RT-PCR, but they improved clinically also so much faster, that one possible mechanism in my mind coming is that when we are radiating the mucosa of the throat, we are radiating not only local cells, we are also radiating the blood, because these capillaries are carrying the blood. And in about 3 to 4 minutes time, the blood has circulated 2 times under the UV light. So that reduces the viral load significantly by 70 to 80%, and the remaining viruses would be taken care of by our immune system. And the other way UV indirectly helps in clearing up the lungs is by ozone, because UV, when the patient is taking the UV dose in the throat and in the nose, he's also taking ozone. So this ozone is going into the inhalation, and this tiny amount of ozone in the lungs is disinfecting the lungs and is probably helping. And not only lungs, but that ozone and nascent oxygen is also going into the sinuses, so it's clearing up the sinuses also. And this is one of our patients who was RT-PCR positive but asymptomatic, was admitted to the ward. On second day, he started developing the breathlessness, and then on second X-ray, we could see that there was right lung lower lobe pneumonia had started. And at this time, we dosed this patient for UV, and then this is the third day X-ray. So this pneumonia, which had started occurring, has cleared in less than 24 hours. Of course, we did not have the permission so far to treat the severely diseased patients, because they are on the ventilator, so we could not do the treatment on them. We, at the moment, are treating only asymptomatic in one arm and mild to moderately symptomatic on the second arm. And ozone being used for sinus treatment is already known in USA. There are some pathies, other than allopathy, which is already using ozone, and you can just Google search and you will find so many references of ozone sinus treatment. And even in Ayurveda also, this is known as Atap Sevanam, inhaling the UV light along with the sunlight in your throat for respiratory infections. And of course, this is helpful, but it takes very long time, because the sunlight does not have enough UV light power. So it would take about 6 to 7 hours for 3 to 4 days for you to sunbask the UV light from the sunlight. And we just pay a little more attention to ozone and nascent oxygen, and you will realize that ozone is not toxic in that tiny amount which is generated by this little UVC device, which is 5 to 8 parts per billion. And ozone is a great refresher in that small amount. And rainwater from high clouds bring dissolved ozone, which gives the highest crop yield, more than the standard irrigation. And this experiment is already going on in China, and it's already in use in Israel. In fact, ozonized water irrigation. Just Google search ozone water irrigation Israel, and you will find so many farms, kibbutz, using ozone water to give 3 to 4 times more yield than the standard irrigation water. And this petrichor, as we know, जिसको हम बारिश की खुशबू बोलते हैं, that is because the ozone is dissolved in the rainwater, and that gives you that special scent, and that gives you that special smell and freshness of the rainwater. If you water your garden with a bore water, no matter how much water you splash on your plants and on your, you will feel with the first rain, which comes from the high clouds, which comes with the ozone. But if you ozonize your bore water, you feel the same freshness. Even the plants would look same fresh. And you must have noticed that when you go mountaineering or trekking in very high Himalayas, in spite of having so much cold and you are surrounded by the snow for 15, 20, 30 days, and still you never develop sinusitis, or you never develop that kind of headache which you normally develop. So that is because of the presence of ozone, which kills all the microbes present in your sinus. And that's the reason why you feel fresh. It's not only that the environment is pollution free, it's because it is containing small amount of ozone at a higher altitude. And you must have seen these oxygen bars, which gives excellent freshness within 15 minutes. You feel so much rejuvenated and recharged. Now what they do, instead of 20% oxygen, they infuse your nose and lungs with about 32% oxygen. So it's only 12 more percent of oxygen, but it's not really that 12 more percent of oxygen which helps you, because that 12% oxygen in 15 minutes will go away within another 10 minutes, and you will start feeling the same lethargy or same tiredness of again. But it is actually the UV light, which is usually hidden under their counter from the public view. So their oxygen is passing under the UV light, and this is forming a small amount of ozone, and then these tubes are coming, and in order to hide the smell of that chlorine-like smell of nascent oxygen and ozone, they pass this through various perfumes, and that perfume will mask the smell of ozone. But it's so these oxygen bars are actually, in reality, they are ozone bars. And if you think of, if you negatively think of UV light, even sun is not safe. So, we just need to open our mind and open our hearts to the UV light. And as the Bible has said, open thy heart and mind, and thou shalt have light. I say, thou shalt have UV light. And once you open your heart and eyes and mind to the UV light, I guarantee you that you will fall in love with UV light, because it is so mesmerizing and it's so beneficial that you will fall in love as much as you will fall in love with your dream girl. And in my opinion, the concept of Shivji's third netra, which can burn out anything, is also probably the UV light. And I am personally feeling that the UV-C light is the Trishul of Shivji. The center spike being the UV-C itself, and the left spike being the ozone, and the right spike being the nascent oxygen. और बाबा केदारनाथ ने ये त्रिशूल तो हमारे हाथ में किसी तरह पकड़ा दिया है, और अभी ये बाबा भी हमारी कुछ सुन ले, and allow, after our pilot study is over, allow the UV light use on a wider scale to India. And I'm pretty sure that with UV-C light, we can actually negativize the entire Indian COVID positive population within a matter of a week. Well, it's if you make actually 1,000 UVC torches, you can negativize the entire country in a single day from morning to evening. That's my confidence. That's not only mine, but that's our experience of me and RCO treated more than 100 patients. And in my opinion, UVC 222 or UVC 254 is the Brahmastra against the coronavirus, and not only coronavirus, against all the respiratory viruses. So with that, I'll end my talk here, and I request Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Asutosh to take questions for this talk. I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, Doctor. Yeah, Dr.
Yes, sir. I have many questions, sir. And before proceeding to like maskology, I'll just take your 3 to 4 minutes. Can you elaborate any protocol for OT UV sterilization?
For our OT, what we have done at present is we run the UV light 2 hours prior to our surgery. Usually I start at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we have a timer set from 10 p.m. to 12 or 12:30 p.m.
Okay.
That 2 hours is enough to destroy viruses, fungus, molds, and bacteria. On the surface, it takes only 20 minutes. But we usually try, we usually feel that let us keep it a little longer so that the undersurfaces will have enough ozone concentration in that 2 hours. Okay. So that is 2 hours. And for the coronavirus inactivation, what we do is between 2 surgeries, we radiate the theater for 1 minute.
Okay, fine.
When our OPD is going on, our OPD tube lights and staircase and waiting room, all those areas where there's a lot of public chahal pahal, those tube lights go on for 30 seconds at every 30 minutes.
Okay, fine. Sir, can we use UV lamp instead of hand sanitizer? That is a question from Dr. Ajay Gupta, Jamshedpur.
Absolutely. That's what I shown on my first lecture. We have made one box with 2 UV lamps, and what you do is you put a timer, that's a sensor and a timer, just like in airport we have that hot air dryer. Like that, you just take help from any engineering college final year student of electronics. They'll make you a sensor and a timer. So when somebody pushes the hand in, the UV light will be on. And after 15 or 20 seconds, the light will go off. And it will take 16 minutes before the skin will start burning.
Okay. Sir, another question from YouTube. N95 mask sterilization, can we use the UV?
Absolutely. Absolutely. UV is the best way to sterilize the N95 mask. And that's what is done. When you put the N95 mask in sunlight for 4 days, what happens? It's not the sunlight which is killing the bacteria. It's not even the heat, because the virus would die at a temperature of 70 degrees. And the sunlight never reaches beyond 45 to 50 degrees centigrade. So it's neither the dry heat nor the visible light. It is the UVA light and a small component of UVB light which is present, which will destroy the viruses over a period of 72 hours. So it will take about 72 hours in UVA, but in UVC, you don't need more than 15 to 20 minutes. The surface viruses would be inactivated within 4 to 40 seconds. But the viruses which have already gone into the filter, into the inner layer of the N95 mask, they will need a longer duration of UV exposure. So you consider about 20 to 30 minutes of UV exposure, and it will be sterilized.
Okay.
And that is the best.
There is one question, sir.
When you wash N95 with alcohol, what alcohol does is that, N95 is a fibers and it has some kind of ground substance. So that ground substance is dissolved by the alcohol. So that I'll show you that study what happens when you wash it with water, when you wash it with soap, when you wash it with alcohol.
Okay.
I have that study in my that maskology talk.
Okay, sir. Sir,
There is one question.
Dr. KC.
Is the effect of UVC local, or does it cause any systemic effects also?
No, there is no systemic effect. It is only local.
Okay.
The side effects are only local. The way it helps in our study, the way it helps in systemic circulation is that because the blood is passing under the UV light for 4 minutes, probably that blood that is enough. 4 minutes is enough for 2 circulations. So almost the entire blood has passed into the UV light in capillaries. So that is where probably it is helping. That's what we thought. And the blood bank studies, 2 studies which I mentioned, have already proven that the blood, when you pass in the capillary in vitro in the blood bank, it gets sterilized if the donor was dengue positive or chikungunya positive.
Sir, there is one question. Is there any light which we can fit to the bronchoscopy? One ENT surgeon is asking that if the patient is suffering from tracheobronchitis, pneumonia due to COVID, can we fit the UV-C light to bronchoscopy?
It is theoretically possible. That is, there is no difficulty in it. The only thing is I haven't, entered into that depth. I haven't studied the bronchoscope actually, but I can certainly say that those old straight bronchoscope, there is no problem at all.
Okay.
The modern flexible bronchoscopes, what we have to check is whether those fibers, the fiber optics, are transparent for UV light or not, whether they absorb the UV light and allow only the visible light or not. That is the only question. But those old type metal straight bronchoscope, there is no problem at all.
Fine. I think we'll move to the next talk of maskology.
Can you do some discussion amongst us? I just need washroom break.
Yes, sir, please.
Because I've been drinking little water to keep my throat moist. So I'll just be back. Meanwhile, you can discuss something.
So there are many questions, guys, which has come to me, and a few of that are already answered. I will take.
I'll be back in 3-4 minutes.
Yes, sir. That is okay. The timings, many people have asked me about the timings which are supposed to be kept on for this exposure. Sir has already answered this question for OT, for your OPD and other. I think we all should have UV cabinets to get our currencies, pockets, mobiles sterilized in the coming days. There are definitely one good question of using a robot like system, which we usually have for floor cleaning, automated robot, which can be fitted over this with this UV light. And there is question from Dr. Jay Bhupi that does it destroys coronavirus? Yes, it do destroys coronavirus. There is question about applications of UVC in ENT specialty. I think we can think upon it, and you yourself can come up across this answer. There is question by Dr. Mohan that which all organisms get killed by UV. So Dr. Kakriya sir has already answered this, and accordingly, it kills all RNA viruses, tuberculosis viruses, and many others. There is few studies. I have some study over here. Just a minute. I can share the link for one study in the YouTube comment box, which says it kill microbes from Streptococcus species, tuberculosis, anthrax, RNA viruses. These are all the organisms it can kill.
Oh, the UVC will kill anything.
UVC will kill anything?
Because I tell you why. The life on Earth began only after the ozone layer got formed.
Okay.
So if you look at the evolutionary history of evolution or starting of the life on Earth, the life started only after UVC was shielded. And that's the reason why not a single organism's DNA has a power to stay alive against UVC. Now, why it does not kill the bigger animals and why it only kills the microbes? The reason being that UVC has a very shallow penetration depth. It does not go beyond 1.5 micron. So the bacterium or the fungal cell or the virus is within the penetration depth of the UVC. Whereas humans are not within the penetration depth of UVC. What we receive is, at the most what will happen, your epithelium of the skin of dead epidermis will be gone. If you are exposed, let us say you went to Goa and took 3 hours or 4 hours bath at beach, and at beach UVA and B is maximum because there are very few trees and there's a lot of UV reflection from the seawater. That's the reason why we see the water as blue. So UVC penetrates in the microbial thickness. So no microbe has any capacity to survive against UVC. Only the intensity and only the duration will differ between the bacterium. But like there are some bacteria who develop resistance against a particular antibiotic, it's not going to happen because it would take millions and millions of years before a microorganism would develop resistance to UVC by some kind of mutation or changing themselves. So UVC will destroy any microorganism. There is no doubt about
Definitely.
it. Okay, so shall we?
Sorry. Sir, there is one question that somebody is COVID positive and want to go for a UV treatment like per oral. So what should be the duration and what should be the like frequency, 2 times, 3 times per day or what?
Our current protocol is 2 millijoule per centimeter square. That is, let us say you take an 11 watt UVC lamp and cover it on both sides. We have actually now made a housing where the entire lamp is inside and only a little aperture is open which will shine the UV into the throat. So 3 minutes, 2 millijoule per centimeter square, 3 minutes in case of an asymptomatic patient.
Okay.
And after 3 hours, we radiate again for another 3 minutes in case of mild to moderate symptomatic patient, because mild to moderate symptomatic patient means the viruses have gone into the lungs and there are more number of viruses in lung and blood. So we would like to radiate them second dose, but for asymptomatic only one. And I tell you, 2 ophthalmologists from Bombay came, husband and wife, both ophthalmologists, and son, all 3 came positive, and we radiated them on last Monday, and on Wednesday their RT-PCR came negative. Last Sunday they were positive. Monday Dr. RC had gone and given the UV dose and it came. In Surat there was one orthopedic surgeon, his wife and his 2 kids and parents, total 6 people from the same family. All of them were positive. And the father was symptomatic. The others were asymptomatic. So we treated them and then we requested the authorities to do RT-PCR for us on a payment. So they did it and they all 6 came negative. So by now we have already unofficially, we have already done more than 100.
So sir, you are planning for some study or already going on?
The study has already been approved by GCMR and Bhavnagar Medical College. So the study is already going on in Bhavnagar Medical College, but it will take some time for us to publish, number one, and second thing is that before we could we could get the permission to study, we negativized the entire Bhavnagar, because Bhavnagar Muslim Jamaat contacted us, and we gave them the UV in the containment zone, and they all, during the Ramadan, they all took the UV. So the entire area, which was giving 15 to 16 positive cases every day, has become negativized. So since last 7 days, this is the 7th day we do not have a single case positive in Bangladesh.
Okay, fine. Fine.
And our ward, which was filled up,
like more like a magic to me. So this looks like more like a magic to me than talking of so much toxic medicines about to treat this COVID situation, and still we are like slightly lagging behind to take up this treatment.
And I tell you, forget about the COVID. If any of us are getting, let us say, common cold, today morning you feel that your sinuses are getting filled up and you are going to develop common cold by evening. You take UV, and I guarantee you that by evening you will be cleared. There will be no more common cold symptoms.
That's great.
It works so very well. You see, we have so many patients who come to us thinking that either they have glaucoma or they have refraction error with the pain behind the eyeball. It's actually a low-grade, subclinical grade of ethmoidal sinusitis or frontal sinusitis with a referred pain on the eyeball. So most of the time they come to us, we say them that you don't have anything. You go to ENT surgeon, you go and take vitamin B12 or take vitamin D3 or whatever. You radiate these patients who are non-specific headache, eyes normal. You just give them 1 or 2 minutes of coronas, and next day morning they will call you that, sir, हमें ऐसा लग रहा है, the feedback which I have got is कि lockdown में जैसे 2 महीने तक हजामत नहीं करी है, and then we got the haircut done, और जितना light feel होता है घर आके नहाते हैं जब तक, इतना light feel होने लगता है. So those ENT surgeons who are in the audience, I request them that even they should consider, rather than treating sinusitis with medication, just treat it with UV. Do it your personal study. Taking an official study is a very long journey, going through ICMR, getting this manjuri, that manjuri. You will have to do about 300 to 400 pages of paperwork. But you do your own personal study, radiate them 10 patients with UV, and 10 patients you put it on your standard treatment. UV patients will tell you that our sinusitis is gone within 7 hours or 8 hours. It really works, Pankaj, like magic. Okay, so
your voice is not heard, Pankaj.
No,
Pankaj is not audible.
Dr. Pankaj, your mic is muted.
Yes.
You are muted. Yeah.
Sir, I think that is very true. It is like magic. I think we should proceed with the second talk of maskology. Okay. And definitely that is a part of talk which are like many people are interested into, and there are multiple masks available in the market, and there is so much confusion about all that. So sir is going to clear all those confusions. Proceed with the maskology talk, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So when our Prime Minister started Mask India movement, I just started thinking more and more about masks. Till this COVID era, we never paid much attention to the mask. We just used the mask, whatever was supplied to us by our local surgical supplier. And besides being writer, I'm a little good photographer, and this is my recent photographs, which I have named Gigi Visha. And this is the octopusy, that is octopus in the eye. Another octopus in the eye. This is persistent pupillary membrane for the non-ophthalmic audience. And then I had to operate this child who had bilateral white mature cataract on 30th of March, soon after the lockdown. And when this family kept on coming, I observed that this guy was wearing N95 mask with this yellow valve here. The child was wearing khadi mask and the mother was just wearing a scarf for her chunni as a mask. So this family started, making me think and dig deeper into the mask. So then I realized and found that maskology in itself is a branch of study. And you can do a diploma in maskology and it takes about 3 years for becoming a maskology diploma holder from a polytechnic in China or in Korea. And there are more than 700 types of masks, from professional masks, health workers masks to various different vocational and professional masks. These masks are designed for spray paint worker who work in the car factory. And there is a very special kind of mask which is known as cut methane mask. That means this mask has some kind of substance which will absorb methane, convert methane by chemical into oxygen and allow only the oxygen to pass into the lungs of the wearer. This is especially useful for those people who work to clean the sewer. Many times we hear that some people died in the sewer because of the methane as soon as they went down into the sewer. Many times this hadsa happens in India. If they were wearing that methane mask, this would not have happened. And then these are the political or fashion kind of masks. And these are the masks which are carnival masks, which are used in Rio de Janeiro or Venice Carnival. And this is the mask which is used, which is known as theatrical mask or cinematic mask. This is Amitabh Bachchan in Pa. There's another branch of maskology, which is prosthetic mask for these kind of unfortunate patients. So maskology in itself is a big subject which would take at least years to study if you really want to study. But what concerns us is at present the mask of health care workers. So this is the study that probability of contagion if the spreader is not wearing mask and if we are not wearing mask, very, very high chance of having infection. If we are wearing mask but the spreader is not wearing the mask, then also the chances are very high, because this can go into your eyes and infect you, or it can go around the mask and infect you. If the spreader is wearing the mask and you are not wearing mask, then also there is a medium chance. And if the spreader is wearing the mask and you are wearing mask, chances are low. If the distance between you and you is 1.5 meter, the chances are lower. So, then when I was studying the mask, I came to these three main different kind of masks, which are known as single-use face masks or surgical mask or respirator mask. Now these, up till now, most of us would be probably buying this single-use face mask, which are available for 3 rupees or 4 rupees as disposable. And we were even using this in our theater. But then I realized that these masks are actually meant only for, occasions wherein they have to prevent their lungs from getting this kind of floor or this kind of lappy worker or those who are scrubbing the paint from the wall. So these masks are no good for healthcare workers, which I'll show you in the video later on. And the surgical masks are according to the US classification, there are level 1, level 2, and level 3. And this level 3 surgical mask is the best for us because it filters the particle size of 3 microns, which is the size of bacteria. Average size of bacteria, more than 98% efficiency, and 0.1 micron, more than 98% efficiency, which is the size of most of the viruses. This is the N95 masks, which are tested only for 0.3 microns. Actually, surgical masks, in my opinion, are better than N95 masks because N95 standard does not, make the manufacturer to test for 0.1 micron size. They test only for 0.3 micron size. So There are three levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. The level 1 masks are for only for procedures. That is for procedures like PR or PV or direct ophthalmoscopy, where you go very close to the patient. Level 2 masks are for light to moderate amount of fluid spray or aerosol generating kind of procedure. So this is for minor OT, like operation, like the ophthalmic surgeries. And level 3 masks are where there's a lot of aerosol generation. So these are to be used by all the people who are using power drills, especially the dentists, ENT surgeons, the orthopedic surgeons, and neurosurgeons, because when they use the power drill, they are generating very large amount of aerosols. There are 5 F's to be considered of surgical mask. One is filtration capacity, which is denominated as 95%, 99%, or 100%. Fluid resistance, that means if when you are doing the surgery and if the fluid comes splashing onto your mask, how much fluid it will prevent from going onto your lips or onto your nose. Also, the flow rate is very important because of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which should be at least 95 liters per minute in order to have enough oxygen for you. Otherwise, you will suffer from hypoxia or carbon dioxide level of your blood. 85 liters per minute is the cutoff limit. 95 is preferable and ideal. The other F is fitting. How well fitting is the mask around your face so that there is no side leak. Then other are the features like no slip or no nose slip, anti-fog foam strip at the nose so that those surgeons who are having spectacles, they will not have fogging, and whether the mask is having an eye protection shield incorporated into the mask or not. Now, level 3 surgical mask ideally should be used only with the straps, because with ear loops, you can never have the tight fitting, and usually ear loops you cannot even tighten, and even if you tighten it by knotting behind your ear, the ear would slightly come forward, and those rubbers are very, very loose, so they will become very slinky. So they don't give you tight fit. So surgical mask level 3 with straps are the ideal for the surgeons in the operation theater. For the OPD procedures or for minor examination procedure, you can use ear loop, but not in surgery. Now, what are the 3 layers of protection? So the outermost layer is made of hydrophobic and impervious material, which is impervious to water, so that blood, body fluids cannot pass through and wet up your lips. The middle layer is made up of electrostatic filter, which is a very special kind of filter. Now, this filter is known as spun blown or some kind of technology, which is a non-woven basically material, but the fibers are electrostatic, so they will attract the bacteria or virus so that the virus will stick there, as if your hair would stick with your comb in the winter when the hair is dry. So that electrostatic property, as well as its matrix, is such that the virus, in order to pass through this filter, has to travel too much of zigzag. So when that zigzag travel takes place, the motion of that aerosol is broken, and most of the viruses and most of the bacteria will be trapped into this filter. And the inner layer is actually hydrophilic, which is a non-woven cotton, which absorbs the surgeon's saliva and gives a nice feeling to your lip, because you don't like to have the plastic fibers touching your lips for a very long duration. More than half an hour, you don't tolerate that. So this cotton layer, inner side, gives you very nice feeling, and you can continue 3-4 hours or 5 hours of work with that. Now let us see. This is the outer layer which I have made up into a small funnel, and we put a water into it. And as you can see that it is so hydrophobic that water does not get absorbed, and even the water does not leak. Even the inner side does not become wet. It remains as dry as if there was no water outside. Now this is the other side, which is going to remain towards our lid. This is the cotton made up of non-woven cotton, and as you can see, all this water will be absorbed. So this is going to absorb your saliva and your aerosol or microdroplet when you are talking or being ordered to your nurses when we are speaking during this. As you can see that this layer has absorbed all water. Now let us dissect this mask and see what is the center. So these are the three layers. The outer blue one is hydrophobic, the inner one white, which is cotton, and the central one, as I said, is a special kind of filter which will trap the bacteria by electrostatic charge and by Brownian zigzag movement. Now this filter is such that when you touch the flame, it will just evaporate. It will not burn. It will not even become black. Whereas this is the tissue paper which will catch fire and it will burn because it contains carbon. So that one is non-carbon containing kind of a thing which does not catch fire. So this is N95. Now KN95 is a Chinese standard which is almost equivalent to N95 of US standard. And now, what is this valve for? This valve is actually for exhalation. So when the patient is taking the breath, when the wearer is taking the breath, the oxygen or the breath is going through this area. But when the patient is exhaling, he is exhaling from this valve. So when a patient comes in our clinic with this kind of mask, and if this patient is a spreader or a silent carrier, we are not protected because his exhalation is going to come out without any filtration. This valve will open when the patient will exhale. So if anybody comes into your clinic with this kind of valve mask, give them a mask or a level 3 surgical mask on top of this. Don't examine this patient, don't go close to this patient because they are going to exhale their breathe without any filtration onto your mouth. This is another set of masks which is known as activated charcoal mask. Now this mask has an additional filter layer which is activated charcoal. So charcoal has a property that it absorbs almost all the smelly material. So if you are going to work in a very smelly kind of environment, or if you are going to do a lot of cauterization during your surgery, wherein you are likely to inhale too much of protein putrefaction, then it's ideal to have this carbon charcoal mask. And the best test for this is that when you wear this mask and you squirt a perfume in the room, you will not be able to smell the perfume. Now the question was, can I wash my mask? There are several studies which says no, because washing makes it N80 from N95, because this N95 mask material is not only fibers, but it is also having some ground substance. Like we have in cornea, we have fibrils, and then we have keratoglycans as a ground substance. This is having some kind of filler material between the fibrils, and to hold the fibers in their own place. So when you wash them, the ground material goes away and as the porosity will increase.
काकड़िया सर का स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं हो रहा है.
स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं हो रहा है.
Yes.
Okay.
उनका स्क्रीन ब्लैंक है. बाकी ये पार्टिसिपेंट्स आ रहे हैं पूरे साइड से.
Ashutosh sir, everything is going well on my screen. I think there is some issue.
दोबारा ज्वाइन करने को बोलूं क्या? Hello?
Okay. Is my screen visible, Dr. Pankaj?
Yes, sir. Very well. You can please continue. They will solve the technical issues. No issues. No problem.
Okay, fine. So, this ground substance gets washed away by washing it even with water or washing with alcohol. So this should not be done. N95 mask is not washable. If you wash it, you have to throw it. And there are n number of studies, and here is a study where before washing, the particle filtration efficiency was 99%. After washing with water and soap, the particle filtration has gone down to 78%. So it's almost like an N78 kind of mask. And when you apply alcohol, again, the same thing happens. The ground substance goes away, so porosity increases, and it is no good. Skip this slide. Okay, now this is very interesting study. The flu infection in nurses using N95 versus surgical mask. The number of participants in this study, the number of volunteers was 2,862. So this is a huge study. And flu virus is only 40 nanometer versus the 120 nanometer of SARS-CoV-2. So it's almost like 1/4 the size or 1/3 the size of the SARS-CoV. So they tested, the nurses were randomly assigned to wear surgical mask or N95 mask. And it was very surprising to find that N95 mask wearers were infected 8.2%, whereas surgical mask wearers were infected only 7.2%. Versus in non-immunized, no mask wearer, infection rate of flu was 37%. So it was almost like 6 to 7 times more risk without wearing. So this study of such a large population proves that surgical mask level 3 with straps is actually much better than N95 mask. This is another study done in Canada on 446 nurses, the same result, 10.5% rate of infection with N95 mask, whereas only 9.4% risk of infection with surgical mask. And this study was done on 212 volunteers wearing surgical mask versus N95 respirator on 210. So more or less the same number on either side. And they found that coronavirus infection occurred in surgical mask in only 9 out of 212, whereas it occurred in 12 patients out of 210 in N95 respirator. So there's a definitely higher percentage of N95 respirator making you infected. So all these 3 studies are online, and you can visit that, and it proves that surgical mask is even slightly better than N95, this N95 mask. And this guy is Thomas Talhem, who is PhD in air filtration. And his website is worth visiting. Spending at least 3 to 4 hours on his website will clear up everything about mask, and I strongly recommend all of us that please visit his website. This is his colleague, Paddy Robertson. Both of them are PhDs in air filtration. And this is their website, smartairfilters.com. And go to the mask section. You will know everything you need to know about mask. And also, if you go to 3M's website, you will find a lot of information about the mask. And then I came across this study, Aerosol Science and Technology is a journal where they said characterization of aerosol produced during surgical procedures in hospitals in different departments. And after reading that study, I realized that, oh my God, all of us, most of us, those who are working in government hospitals or those of us who are working in charitable hospitals are given a gown and the mask and the cap which are made from government purchased khadi. And these khadi cloth has so much of porosity that it is no good as a mask. It doesn't fit. It just gives you a sense of security, or it's more or less like a surgical uniform rather than any protection. And this mask is at least little better because this has 2 layers. There is one white layer inside and one green layer outside. But these single layer khadi masks are absolutely bakwas. There's no point in wearing those. And these kind of single layer or 2 layer clothes are also not really protective, but that's okay. That's for the patient. For us, we have to protect ourselves. And as I said, orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, ENT surgeons, when they do mustard and bone surgeries, and dentists, when they do this drilling, because this drill is rotating at a very, very high speed and it is generating so much of aerosol and that if the patient is a carrier, that aerosol will go in the entire operating theater. And if you are having an HEPA filter, this aerosol will go down and then go back into the duct. And most of the HEPA filter duct are usually vented outside. Most of them have the ventilation of the HEPA filter of operation theater sometimes in the passages, so that infection can spread into your wards and or your rooms also. So this is the mask which we were using so far, these cloth single layer mask. And as you can see, a simple blow will kill the flame even at 1.5 feet distance or 2 feet distance. So this is so much porous that if a patient coughs or if a patient sneezes, there's no way you can protect yourself. The aerosol will come out. This is cheap kind of Chinese made surgical mask. So this is so much porous that although this is known as surgical mask, this is actually not surgical mask. The surgical mask would not allow the flame to kill. And you can see the difference between a good quality surgical mask porosity versus the cheap quality surgical mask porosity. And as I said, N95 versus KN95, there's hardly any difference. It's only the Chinese and American standard. There are some differences, but we don't need to go so much into that depth. And there's one suggestion, one study has suggested that when you are putting on N95 mask, do gargling of Listerine or do tooth brushing, because after 3 hours or 4 hours, you will start smelling your own breath as if your own teeth and gums have started rotting. So it's always better because this does not have a good permeability for carbon dioxide to go out. And the price of N95 has skyrocketed from 65 rupees anywhere up to 400, 500 rupees. So, I had a chance of visit Vardha Ashram just before the lockdown. When I came to Amravati, I went there, and there was an inspiration which I learned from there about the Swadeshi movement. So during this lockdown, I thought, can we do something about making a Swadeshi mask? So this is the Central Salt and Marine Chemical Research Institute here in Bhavnagar, which is a huge central government facility with more than about 450 PhD scientists working on marine chemicals, how to filter the marine seawater. We are a port city. So this is an institute of very high repute who have a great expertise in reverse osmosis and nanofiltration and ultrafiltration membranes. So reverse osmosis membranes does not allow anything bigger than water and some amount of small salts to pass through. So RO membrane has porosity which will trap almost all the bacteria. It will allow very few viruses to pass, and bigger viruses cannot pass. So we joined hands with them and tried to develop a mask out of the RO membranes which they were using for different purpose. This is Dr. Kanan Srivastava, who is the head of, they are all PhD guys, who is the head of Central Salt. This is me, and this is Dr. V.K. Shahi and Dr. Ankur Goel. So during this lockdown, in about first 15-20 days, we designed a mask, which is better than N95 mask. It is a medicated mask or a blue mask having a cloth which is having some salt of copper, and this copper helps to kill the virus on the outer surface itself. And it's a very simple design. With RO membrane, you don't need actually a nose clip because RO membrane is slightly cut up, so it stays on your nose very tightly. even without the nose clip. And very simple stitching design, very simple pattern. It is actually 5-layer mask. The outer and inner layers are some kind of medicated fabric. These two are the type of filters which I discussed, and this is the RO membrane, which is in the center. This was the size. You can see it from the visiting cards. What is the size? These are the dimensions. And so this blue mask has advantages that it is N100, so no virus can pass through it. So safer than and better than N95 or N99. It can be impregnated with dilute povidone betadine solution or chlorhexidine, or you can spray Dettol on the outer surface after 3 days or 4 days of use or after washing. It can be washed for at least 500 times in washing machine, in hot water also, because these all things are designed to remain in water for years together. And there's no metal nose clip, so it can be irradiated in microwave oven for any number of times. It is very cost effective. It would not cost more than 40 rupees to make versus 400 for N100 mask. And it can be reused for at least 500 times. So per use cost is as low as 8 paisa. You can see how forcefully I'm trying to blow the flame, but the flame hardly even flickers. So it is that much impervious, and you can put it in microwave oven and just run the microwave oven for 1 minute and destroy all the bacteria, all the viruses. It will just, the microwave will just pop the organisms like it is popping the corn. And after my last talk, there are so many doctors who asked me that we want to purchase that mask. So here I want to clarify that we are not mask manufacturers. We only researched a mask making it from RO membrane. And now that institute has got the certification from STIRA, which is a mask approval agency of government of India. And they are actually in discussion with some companies to produce it commercially. Now, in the meanwhile, I came across this paper which was published on 2nd April 2020. And this paper is a very nice study done by Alex Chin and his group in USA. And this describes the stability of SARS-CoV-2 virus in different environmental conditions. And this knowledge is very, very useful for us to develop something on our own end. You know, according to that study, on paper and tissue paper, the virus survives only for 3 hours. Now, this is very important. It only survives for 3 hours. On copper, because of the copper ion formation, it can survive only 4 hours. On cardboard, it survives for 24 hours. On wood, for 24 hours. On cloth, for 24 hours. On stainless steel, 2 to 3 days. Polypropylene plastic, 3 days. Glass, 4 days. On paper currency, 4 days. Now, this paper currency is not actually paper currency. We just name it paper currency. Actually, it is a plastic currency because 90% or 80% of the fibers contained in this paper are synthetic nylon fibers. So, paper money, you consider it as good as a plastic. So, it survives for 4 days. And on the outer side of the surgical mask, which is non-hygroscopic or hydrophobic, it can survive for 7 days. So from this study, after digging deep into it, we came to a conclusion that cellulose has some interference with the virus. So paper tissue, which is containing cellulose, the cardboard, which is containing cellulose, wood is containing cellulose, and cotton cloth is containing cellulose. So cellulose somehow hinders with the virus, whereas the synthetic plastic fibers do not hinder the livability or viability of the virus. So from this inference, we thought, and then I also thought why it survives so less, only 3 hours on tissue paper. And we came to know that because tissue paper dehydrates the virus, it desiccates the virus, and there is always some amount of bleach residue which the tissue paper manufacturers, they use to make it more white. So it has some amount of sodium hypochlorite in it. So all these 3 or 4 factors combined together kills the virus within 3 hours. And then after studying this paper, we thought that DIY mask is the best way for India's small hospitals and clinics in the longer run, because this virus and this epidemic is likely to survive for in India for another 1 year or so. So we are looking at spending on masks for next 1 year. So it's much better, to make our own masks. And we have to select thin cloth for inner side, thin cotton cloth for inner side, which will remain towards our face, and a thick cloth on the outer side. And whether that cloth is permeable to the aerosol or not, you can test by, this is an aerosol generation gun, or you can even do it under dark room, keeping a black towel here and just spray perfume or spray the water, and you will realize that whether the aerosol is passing or not. So this is a good cloth, not allowing much of the aerosol to pass. And as I said, cellulose desiccates, and synthetic dye from denim and cotton, leaching synthetic dye inactivates the virions. So even in USA now, the public has started shifting from N95 masks to denim and cotton cloth masks. And when the matter came to Atmanirbhar Bharat, we decided, can we make ABBA masks? ABBA is for Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, of course, this is not to be used like this, but this is just to show. So she is my sister, who is very fond of sewing. So she made, for all her dresses, she made a matching mask with a pocket for tissue paper. So this mask, let's see the demo. So this is a very good idea of creating a sandwich mask or a pocketed mask in which you can put a tissue paper in between. And then she also made almost like an N95 mask with a single strap with a button here, so that you can tighten it very well. And this is, you can see how well fitting it is. And this is just a single button with which you can release, rather than tying every time and untying it. And on the outer side, you can use the cloth which is used for umbrella. And on the inner side, you can use the cloth which is the best cotton, so that your lips will like the touch of the cotton. And size should be 18 by 9 centimeter for adults. It's the same size as the normal surgical mask. And here is her number, Dr. Nipaben. If you want to ask anything about mask, she will be happy to answer you. And this is a study which is from that website I suggested, that they tested all the different materials for permeability. And they found that N95 mask, surgical mask, and HEPA filter and coffee filter, canvas and kitchen towel, more or less have, all of them had more than 95% filtration capacity. So you can use a good quality tissue paper, preferably a face tissue paper, which is made from virgin material, not recycled, with very nice soft filling, and with very nice kind of filtration trapping. Some branded face tissue paper. You can also use filter coffee papers, which are freely available for the decoction South Indian type of coffee. These are available in 2 styles, bleached and unbleached. So don't use unbleached, because we want a little residue of bleach, which will help us destroy the virus as fast as possible. And you can also cut open the reverse osmosis candle and take the osmotic reverse osmosis paper from that candle, which will give you about a 2 meter or 3 meter, which will be good enough to make about 50 masks. from one candle, and that candle doesn't cost more than 300 rupees or something. Or you can use HEPA filter bag, which are available at most of the appliances stores, which are used in vacuum cleaners as dust collection bag. Now these HEPA filters are very good material because they trap 99.97% of dust and pollens down to 0.3 microns. So this HEPA filter is, if you use this between the two cloth layers, it is as good as N95 mask. HEPA is an acronym for high efficiency particulate air filter, and this can remove almost 99.97% of dust pollen. Even you can make the entire mask from HEPA filter, but it's better to have cotton on our lip side so that we have a good feeling. And then we thought of some idea for those who do not have their own spectacles to protect their eyes from getting infected by the aerosol. So dentists or other surgeons can use this kind of mask, which is having the shield, so that you don't have to wear an extra shield on your head. You can see that it does not leak from the side also. The flame doesn't flicker. So there is no leak from side or from front. And my wife and my sister, they are on the matching mask mission during this lockdown, and even ID masks, photo printed masks. And they are already, they have made ready their mask for next festivals of Navratri and wedding season. And even we can have a matching mask for our shirts. And this is another interesting polymer which I came across during this research at the Central Salt Institute. This is a breathable polymer sheets for greenhouse plantations. These sheets are semi-transparent or almost transparent to light, and these are transparent to vapor H2O, transparent to oxygen, transparent to carbon dioxide, but this is not transparent to any pollutant gases, so that the plants inside this greenhouse would grow healthy. And we are trying to make masks out of this, so that those masks will be transparent to everything, as well as it will transfer to visibility of your smile also. This is another thing which is devised by my sister. This is an acrylic shield which is made and bent into a C, which will work as a shield between the patient and you when you are discussing at a shorter distance, especially in small clinics or in general practitioners' clinic. This will be very, very useful kind of shield. And he's Dr. Mukesh Dolakia, my friend from Maua, India. This is his idea of sterilizing the N95 mask in a cooker, in a solar cooker. Because in solar cooker, the temperature goes above 80 degrees very quickly within 15 to 20 minutes. So you keep the mask, rather than keeping for 4 days in dry sunlight, you keep it in the solar cooker, and they are ready for reuse in about 2 hours time. And if you don't have the solar cooker, this is my sister's idea again, to convert old umbrella by coating it with aluminum foil, so that all the UV light will be focused at this location. You cut the handle of the umbrella by half, and that is the focal point of this parabolic reflector. And here you can keep the mask and be irradiated. And this is something interesting. She is my another sister. She is head of the Department of Anesthesia in Bhavnagar Medical College, and she is in charge of the COVID ward. And initially, we studied this, and we thought, if I can make an examiner at home, can we make a ventilator at home? So I gathered my team of carpenters and made a simple ventilator which will compress the ambu bag. Of course, we never applied for certification, but this is very useful, especially for anesthetists. For long anesthesia, you can just put rather than manually pressing the umbo bell. You can just put your umbo bell in this. And this is very simple. This is made from a motor, which is the wiper motor of the car. And by adjusting the voltage, you can increase the speed and frequency. And by adjusting this camshaft, you can increase or decrease the vital volume also. So this is the motor, which is car's wiper motor. So with that, I would like to end my talk with this message that never stop learning, and in life there should be ever stop learning. Thank you very much, and wishing you all. Okay, this is the शायरी which I made during this time. हमने शब्दों को सैनिटाइज किए हैं, कविता को किया है क्वारंटाइन, और प्रेम संक्रमण फैले नहीं आज, इसलिए लागनी को किया है लॉकडाउन. Wishing you all very happy 2020, and not only happy 2020, but with UV light, Corona and COVID-free 2020. Thank you very much for your patient listening, and I'll stop sharing the screen here. And
thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. There are so many questions about all this. I think Dr. Rajesh will continue.
Rajesh.
A very good evening to all. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver a vote of thanks on behalf of Amravati District Ophthalmic Society. I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Jagdeep Kakadiya sir, for his important talk. Sir, your ideas and your very your talk, it was an excellent talk. I am very much thankful to all the participants for participating in this webinar. And last but not the least, I am very much thankful to Entot Pharma for the support for this webinar. Once again, thank you. Thank you.
So there are so many questions again. Especially ENT guys are very much interested in the talk, and they want to incorporate many of the practices which you have suggested. In addition to that, few people have asked that Coronash is commercially available or not. I think you need to go with that.
No, it's not commercially available. We made about 50 of those units, and Dr. RC has given about 42 different doctors in Bombay.
Yeah.
It is to be used only once, and so all those doctors or all those patients who come positive, they use it and give it back to us. And as soon as I finish this study, I'm going to publish something on YouTube how it can be made. It's nothing. The cost of it is not more than 2,500 rupees or 3,000 rupees.
Okay.
And the life of the UV lamp is 9,000 hours. So at a rate of 3 to 4 minutes per patient, we can treat 1.25 lakh patient out of that 2,500 rupees box.
Yes.
It's almost like there's no cost, practically no cost.
Sir, there are few inquiries regarding the availability of the UV tube light and the UV torch.
Right.
Where is it available and how much is the cost?
The UV tube lights, you have to contact your local Philips dealer or Osram dealer.
Okay.
And I gave 2 numbers in my talk, who is an Ahmedabad dealer who handles the entire Gujarat, and 1 person here in Bhavnagar who supplies in Bhavnagar. But you can contact this Pune company ArcLight.
ArcLight, okay.
So because ArcLight, Philips tubes have been so much in high demand all over the world that I think at least for another 30-40 days, we may not be able to get enough supply of Philips tubes. So ArcLight, they make in India, and they're very good. They're really good. So you can contact ArcLight people for tube if your local Philips dealer cannot supply. And in the meanwhile, to tide over the acute shortage, you can just go on Amazon, buy 11-watt tubes, which are ample available. 11-watt tubes are available in thousands. So you buy 3 11-watt and tie it somewhere on some rod or something, and it is as good as 33-watt. Or use 4 and it makes 44-watt. So there's nothing wrong in using that small UV tube in more numbers till you get the bigger tubes.
I think, sir, providing the electricity to these tubes is very crucial because the wavelength may change with the amount of electricity or the voltage given to the tubes.
It comes with its own choke.
Okay.
The tube comes with its own choke, which will convert 24 volt, 230 volt down to 24 volt DC with a 60 hertz frequency between the two electrodes.
Okay, fine. There is one question that does UV penetrate the hemoglobin, transmitted through hemoglobin, means whether it goes through RBC. They want to know more about the throat treatment and how those people have got like PCR, RT-PCR negative in 1 or 2 treatments of UV radiation only. The whole blood is how the whole blood is exposed to this.
Yeah, right. So when you are radiating the mucosa, throat mucosa, you are not radiating only throat mucosa. You are actually radiating the blood circulating under the UV. And in 4 minutes time, done twice, that means it's an 8 minutes of exposure. So in 8 minutes, the entire blood, let us say these patients are running at a rate of 90 to 100 beats per minute. And at 100 beats per minute, the entire 7 liter of circulation will pass through the throat and lung mucosa in about 2 minutes time. So 2 times the blood has circulated. How it helps in lung is by inhaling the ozone. How it helps in sinuses is by inhaling the ozone and the nascent oxygen. And how it helps in the local mucosa as well as the blood which has passed under the UV in the local mucosa is by direct action. So UV does not act only physically, it acts as photons as well as it acts as nascent oxygen and as ozone.
Okay, fine. That is great explanation. Thank you very much, sir.
It's a physics and chemistry combined together.
Yeah.
And you take a UV near to your nose and wait for about 15 to 20 seconds, you will start feeling that nascent oxygen like the chlorine.
Okay.
So there is one question again, sir. Probably the person is a gynecologist. So he is asking, can UVC light be used after opening the abdomen to sterilize the surgical field? Can it be used?
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, okay.
Theoretically, yes. Because once you open the abdomen, you can shine the light, and wherever the light would go, it would treat the virus for very sure. And theoretically, yes, it should work. But I don't have the final conclusive answer. But there is no reason not to work.
Each time we listen to you, sir, you are so enthusiastic, and we really think that how you can manage so many subjects and like being interested into so many different type of subjects at the same time. Really admirable.
If Crohn's disease can be treated by taking a UV rod into the anorectal passage and shining that UV light in the descending colon, there is no reason why UV light cannot be shined into the abdomen once we open.
Yeah, that is true.
Even we can think of this laparoscopic abdominal surgery. You can have visible light and a UV light fiber optic combined. Once see Dr. Pankaj and Dr. Asutosh, once you open your mind to UV, forget about the carcinogenicity of the UV. It's almost negligible. You can neglect. Once you open your mind, there are so many ways which will start coming up in your brain. You can do so many things. And now with these 3D printers in computer, you can make so many different devices very quickly.
Yeah, true.
Sir, there are a lot of people congratulating you and appreciating your innovations. Thank you very much for your lecture in depth and sparing your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, the entered people, Alpesh sir, Rohit sir, Raman sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
I thank you for spending the entire Sunday evening with me, almost 3 hours and 15
Our
minutes.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Pankaj, other than this, I have done 3 or 4 very important innovations in glaucoma treatment and about this
Implants.
and implant. I don't know. Have you used those 2 which I gave you or not yet?
No. Those 2 IOLs we have used, sir, and found extremely good results.
Right.
One more, sir. Can we make it? Can we stop live, sir, now? So that
Yes, we can. We should.
Yes.
So,
Rahul, please stop live.
keep one more webinar on ophthalmic innovations, the lenses, the glaucoma, and those things. Today we talked only on COVID and UV, but those 2-3 things which we have done is also very, very important. Those lenses are going to change the entire scenario. You use it as a monofocal, and it gives you a complete progressive result.
Yeah.
Dr. Pankaj, I'm very happy that you have used those 2. I'll be sending you more.
Sure, sir. Sure. I am very much excited. You said that once it is commercially available, I will send you more. That time it was not labeled. So
right. Now we have the certification and everything is done.
Yes.
So we'll be able to send you in the commercial box now.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much from the Amravati District Ophthalmic Society.
Thank you, sir.
Shall we leave now, Alpesh?
Yes, sir. We can leave, sir. Thank you so much, sir, from Enter side for a wonderful session. Thank you, Amravati District panelist, for this wonderful session, sir.
Thank you, Entot.